I had a terrible thought a few hours ago, and maybe it's been kind of recurring recently.
May I guess?
It's not a boat.
No, that's a very, very good guess. Is the terrible thought, hey, maybe I should drag Casey to a Fish concert sometime?
Oh no, that's not even in question. There's no question. I definitely should do that. No, the even more terrible thought is, I think I have a problem that could be solved by Homebridge. Or Home Assistant, rather. Which one's the one with the box?
Oh, yes. Oh, my time has come.
This is Casey's episode for sure.
Yeah, everything's coming up Millhouse tonight. This is great.
It's Assistant, right? That's like the even more complicated one?
Yeah, so all kidding aside. So Homebridge is basically, let's be as thin a layer as we can. That's simply a facade to get things that aren't natively HomeKit into HomeKit. Whereas Home Assistant is more of a let's boil the ocean, take over the world sort of scenario.
I hate to do, like, I know this is a rabbit hole I should not fall into.
Oh, but it's great.
Everyone says that.
Well, so here's the thing, right? Like all kidding aside, like Home Assistant was one of those things that you have to be able to see through the matrix, and it is brutal to get to the point that you can see through the matrix. Like it is and it's gotten way better since I started using it. I don't know, like 2 years ago, but it's bad. Like getting your head wrapped around the way Home Assistant thinks of the world is not fun. Now, that being said, you have plenty of tutors all around you that would be more than happy to help you. Hello. And I'm not the only one for the record, but it is not fun to start down the path and start getting things squared away. But if you can stick with it and give it a chance, then suddenly the world is opened up to you, and almost anything you can conceive can be done. It's really astonishing. What are you looking to accomplish?
I finally got the beach heating and air conditioning finally all fixed. It's all.
Oh, tell me more.
All new systems put in. It's a Daikin. Everything by them. It's just like a whole brand new everything. Everything had to be replaced, but it works, which is great. That was a very long, very expensive process that has finally ended.
Now, did you go with something that is like comparatively dumber? Because
yes.
If I recall correctly, didn't you have like a very, very, very fancy system, and that was potentially part of the problem?
Yeah, it was originally this Mitsubishi system that it was very high, it's like a high end, like high efficiency heat pump everything, and it had all these like advanced functionality things that we would probably never use, and it was like what the builder had spec'd for the house years ago, and it was very complicated to the point where nobody out here on Fire Island knew how the heck to even service it, so they did a very bad job of servicing it and eventually broke it. To a point that even once I did finally get people out of here who knew what they were doing with these systems, they were like, yeah, we can't save this. It's like too much damage has been done. It would cost way more than it's worth to try to that's like disassemble every part of everything and clean it and all sorts of ridiculous things. So anyway, I replaced it with a Daikin system because they are what everyone out here uses, which means that all the people out here know how to install and service them correctly. I don't really honestly care if it's better or worse. Like it is more practical to own here. And frankly, it was way cheaper than the Mitsubishi system would have been to replace. So that helps because out here, nothing lasts. So when it does die, it'll be cheaper to replace. So anyway, it works pretty well. The only downside is that it, of course, has its own proprietary thermostats. And they,
of course,
as we know from the service guys, like you definitely do not want to have an HVAC guy see you using a Nest or an Ecobee because they hate them and they blame them for every possible problem under the sun. Like, I don't know what smart thermostats did to HVAC people, but they so irrationally hate them. It's kind of comical. So anyway, I'm using their stupid thermostats. It's fine. And they have like Wi-Fi connectivity with their app, and their app is, as you would expect, total trash. Mm-hmm. And of course, as you would expect, it integrates with nothing. There is no support for any of the home platform integrations.
Of course.
So anyway, that's where I started looking at, maybe Homebridge or Home Assistant might be a tool to use here, because every time I want to either turn off the air conditioning, turn on the air conditioning, or just change the temperature of the house, there's 4 different thermostats for all the different split zones. And so I have to go to the app and change 4 different zones. And by the way, the app requires Face ID. Great. Thank you for keeping me secure. It's just it's a very cumbersome process. And the app is not good. And so, when I do change the temperature, sometimes it doesn't stick. Sometimes it changes and then it pops back to where it was. I guess something refreshed and it clobbered itself in a race condition or something. So it's not a good app is what I'm saying. So anyway, I would love just something that I could automate and go yell at some voice assistant somewhere, set the house to 74, and it just does it.
Right.
So that's what got me here.
So while you were talking, I looked to see if there is an integration, which is Home Assistant speak for, is there a software package? It's very easy to add an integration. That part is very straightforward. But anyways, there's a software package for the Dakin, whatever they're called. And sure enough, yes, there is. And so this would be, in principle anyway, fairly easy for you to integrate. Now, the only thing I will say is that shouting at something, the way you would want to do that is by exposing this to HomeKit, which is very straightforward. But I don't want you to start down the path of Home Assistant and thinking it. I mean, Home Assistant does have its own voice stuff, but my understanding is it's fine. The kids would call it mid. But anyways, you could expose all this through through HomeKit, and then you'd be good to go.
Yeah, now, that's all you need to do.
This is a solvable problem, and I don't think this would be that particularly difficult. I think the question is, how would you get Home Assistant in your house? And the obvious answer for that is one of the physical hardware products that they sell. I believe that's what Jason Snell is using now. I think he's using a Home Assistant Green, I want to say. I forget the difference.
Yeah, I saw that. It's like $200. I mean, I have a few Mac Minis, if you haven't heard. I could.
So if you wanted to go that route, and I'm not snarking with you at all, if you wanted to go that route, I think that is very doable, but then you're going to want to go down the path of Docker. Now you're adding a whole new layer of complexity that you probably don't want to futz with. And honestly, I would especially if I'm spending your money, just spend the $200 on Home Assistant Green or whatever the right one is. I don't know their hardware well. I just know that it tends to be very well regarded and work really well. But I think there's a green, and then there's some other color or different version. And again, I can't speak to the specifics about these, but it should be fairly straightforward to figure it out.
All right, thanks. Maybe I'll try that out because I do want something that is relatively low futz, and that is kind of appealing. So. We'll see. Although I say that now, talking about setting up a Home Assistant thing. So it's all relative. But
it's all relative.
But I think also now I assume with modern AI stuff that should make it easier if I run into configuration questions and so maybe this is a decent time to try it out. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very worthwhile adventure for you. It'll make for some good content, selfishly speaking. So I'm on board in that regard. But no, I mean, a Home Assistant Green or some other equivalent hardware dingus, you basically plug it into Ethernet and then you open up a web browser and follow the steps from there. And you are more than capable of doing this, but I would be happy to hold your hand if you needed the help. So if you go down that path, let me know. And one of the nice things is, I mean, you don't have to have Home Assistant infiltrate your entire home. You could just add the Daikin integration and ignore basically any of the things that it auto discovers, and then expose the Daikin thermostats to HomeKit, and then you'd be good to go. But you could also take it to the next step or the next level where you say, okay, if I'm adjusting one thermostat, just automatically adjust all the others to match, or something along those lines. You do some really bananas automations if you so desire. If you know when the people are in the house, when the family's in the house, you could say, if they leave the house, change the set points to such and such. And when any of us return, change it back, or you can do some of that stuff that Nest used to do kind of by hand, if that's appealing to you.
Within a week of having it, I'm going to set up some automation where when I'm on the ferry, turn on the air conditioning so that way it's when I get here, I'm going to do stuff like that.
I mean, this is a solvable problem for sure. You can do some of this absolute nut job stuff. And that's why Home Assistant, for all of its drawbacks, it's very fiddly. Well, it's fiddly to set up. Once it's set up, it tends to be pretty bulletproof, but you have to get there first, right? It's kind of like Linux on the desktop, am I right? But anyway, it's fiddly to set up. It's hard to wrap your mind around at first, but again, they've gotten it much better than it used to be. But once you can see the matrix, if you will, oh my gosh, so many problems are suddenly solved by this stupid software, and it's incredible. So let me know if you go down this path. I think it'll make for some very fun and very enjoyable content.
Well, it was nice knowing you.
All right, let's do some follow-up, and let's start with the OpenAI doughnut hardware. Elijah Yap writes, this theory might fit the description. It's an eye. The moving parts could be the eyelids protecting a center screen, and eyes convey a lot of possible emotions. And Elijah provided a lot of emotions via emoji, which gave me a good laugh. For a more vivid depiction, Google Chrome's Japan marketing team has a whole campaign of the mascot doing cute things.
That's interesting.
I really hope it's not, because I just immediately picture like the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings. Like, there's already a lot of like sort of creepiness factor to AI. So you're going to make a little Cyclops donut with an eye in the middle. It's supposed to be endearing and make you feel good about it, not make you feel like you're constantly being watched. The eye sees all.
I mean, that's fair. I went to Flight of the Navigator personally, but that's just me. Chris Lawrence writes, in overtime, John was speculating that the donut-shaped OpenAI device was red blood cell shaped. The term for the shape of a red blood cell was drilled into us in medical school, a biconcave disc. I can totally see this being used in a Johnny Ive press release.
Yeah, that's exactly the shape I was thinking of. Look how it would be fun to like grip that in the middle. Like, I've got some glasses from like Crate and Barrel that they're like just glass cylinders, but they have little dents in them, like 4 dents around them for you to put your fingers in, and it's very pleasing to grab the glasses that way. You get a more secure grip. So if it doesn't have a hole, it could be a biconcave disc, and that would be cool. But that kind of information is just not important enough for Gruber to tell us. Not Gruber, sorry. Just not important enough for Mark Gurman to tell us. We'll get to Gruber later.
Indeed. All right. With regard to backups, an anonymous contributor writes, during episode 704, you talked about the Mac backups and the difficulty of getting some non-technical people to plug in a backup drive on a regular basis, if ever. Steve Jobs presented a solution to this issue at Macworld 2008 with the introduction of Time Capsule, which allowed for wireless backups.
Reason number a million why it was kind of not a great idea for Apple to depart the Wi-Fi base station business. I mean, it was basically like a very simple, no options, Apple flavored NAS, basically. It was network attached storage, but coming in through the side door, because it's like, we sell Wi-Fi routers and this one's got a hard drive in it. Isn't that neat? Oh, and by the way, your Mac can see it as a time machine destination. It was like getting people to get network attached storage without telling them it was network attached storage. And it had that Apple quality of, look, if you buy this thing and you plug it in, all your Apple stuff know about it, and it just does, it just becomes an option for you. I think your Mac would even prompt you and say, hey, I see this thing that's on the network. Do you want me to back up this Mac to that? And you'd be like, okay, that's great for laptops. You don't have to remember to plug anything in. They do it while they're idle. Like, boy, wouldn't that be great, Apple, to have that kind of solution? Or, do iCloud backup for Macs. But any of those things would be nice, but instead we get none of them.
Womp womp. All right, with regard to multiple Apple IDs with the same phone number, Adam1 writes, for many years, I would set up separate Apple accounts for my smaller customers. During setup, I would attach the same customer-designated phone number to each account. About 2 years ago, Apple seemingly tightened security, and I found that I could no longer reliably use this method. In one case, I attempted to apply this method to just 3 Apple accounts and was blocked. The solution required me to call Apple and speak with their security team to unblock the attempted account creation using the same phone number. The gentleman I spoke with was very courteous and lifted the block once I explained the circumstances. He then explained that I had triggered some automatic security safeguards. He also gently suggested I should be setting up small companies with Apple business accounts, which is the strategy I've since adopted. Before I let the gentleman go, I asked him whether it was even still possible to use one phone number on more than one account. He said yes, but a number of unstated factors went into the automated system's decision-making process. I asked if it was possible to make 3 to 5 accounts under the best-case circumstances. He answered that 3 to 5 was, quote, a good rule of thumb. I've since tested that hypothesis and found it generally to be true. In many cases, if I make an Apple ID directly on the device, rather than at the accounts.apple.com website, I can indeed add the same phone number to several accounts. That said, I've never tried more than 3. One fun fact, I have one customer who set up accounts years ago and put 20 Apple accounts onto one phone number and 15 on another. Those accounts still work fine today with those 2 phone numbers. Man, those were the good old days.
Yeah, Apple tends not to give you details about its various security systems. And the thing that this makes me think of is my issue with getting my Apple ID locked. I've complained about that on the show before. It was really bad at one point, and then it got less bad. I don't know why. Recently, it's been getting bad again. I just assume everyone who has this happen to them, it's not just me, assumes like, oh, someone's trying to get into my Apple ID. You know what I mean? Like, and like putting in bad passwords, and then you're getting locked out of your account. And when this happens, basically Apple says your Apple ID is locked, and you have a button that says unlock account, and it makes you go through a bunch of stuff. And enter in your phone number and it sends you an SMS, and you got to do two-factor, and you got to enter your password. And back in the day, it also used to try to herd you towards changing your password, which I would never do. You didn't have to do. You could unlock the account without changing your password, but it would send you there and try to make you think you have to change your password. Anyway, I'm kind of sick of doing it. And then at a certain point, it started saying, I started getting 503 errors, HTTP 503 responses. I forget what that status code stands for. Someone can look it up while I'm talking. But basically, like the HTTP requests of the Unlock Your Apple ID website, which is Apple's website, to be clear. It's like something on apple.com. It would throw 503 errors, and you get this little Apple HTML dialog box saying, sorry, couldn't complete that request. And it's like a 7-step process to unlock your Apple ID. And every HTTP request has to go through. So you could be on a page and you'd watch, like in the dev tools, you'd watch it firing off all these, AJAX requests, essentially, fetch requests, whatever, behind the scenes. And you'd see them going through, and it'd be like 200, 200, 200, oh, 503. And you get the dialogue. So you've got to have all of the behind the scenes HTTP requests work before you can get to the next page. And my experience of it was like, that it was throttling, like that I could have a certain, because I would just leave the window there for 5 minutes and then come back to it, and then I could get to the next page. But then to get to the page after that, it wouldn't work again. So I just leave it for 5 minutes. You can't leave it too long because the session will time out, and then you got to start all over again. And I thought this was ridiculous, and I hated it. And then I discovered, I'm like, oh, I found the solution. Turn off my Wi-Fi, my Ethernet, and tether to my phone. Because the phone is on a different network, and that would work. I'm like, that's it. There must be like, maybe there's something in my house that's constantly trying to log into my Apple ID, or like just, it always works on my phone. But that lasted like 3 days. And then I started getting the same thing on my phone, where it'd be like, I'd tether through my phone and I would get the 503 response. So my theory on this, based on just hearing other people complain about it, is there's some unwritten rules about activity they see associated with your Apple ID, and they just decide to lock your Apple ID. And they won't let you unlock it because of a second set of unwritten rules that says, hey, too many requests coming from this IP address about Apple IDs. Is it a device in my house that's constantly trying to log into my Apple ID? Is it someone trying to log into every Apple ID in the world somewhere on the same ISP as me? Who knows? Apple won't tell you, but it's a crappy part of the security apparatus that kind of necessarily has to surround Apple IDs, and I don't like it.
I'm sorry. Let's talk Ramageddon, because when will we stop talking about Ramageddon? In like 3 years. Apple has secured lower display prices amid RAM shortage. Joe Rosignol at MacRumors writes, Apple has secured lower prices for OLED displays for the upcoming iPhone 18 Pro models, according to industry sources cited by South Korea's Deal Site. For example, the report said that Apple will pay LG and Samsung around $68 per OLED display destined for the iPhone 18 Pro Max, down significantly from the $110 to $120 that it paid those suppliers for each of the iPhone 17 Pro Max displays. Apple said to have made an aggressive push for lower display prices due to the ongoing memory chip shortage.
Well, apparently they've still got enough weight to throw around for some vendors. I guess the vendors that are not flush with cash from the huge RAM prices, but I do wonder how much that's going to offset the what they have to pay for the other components. We'll see. I mean, the rumors still say that the 18 Pro and Pro Max, which I remember are the only, that and the foldable, whatever, are the ones that are coming out in September, and the plain 18, the rumors say, is not coming out in September. So anyway, for the high-end phones that are coming out in September, I guess I forget if the Air 2 is in that group. The rumor is that they're going to be more expensive. Like the phones are going to be more expensive. So maybe this is just getting a cheaper price on displays is just enough to only have to raise the price $200 instead of $250. It's going to be rough.
Additionally, Apple raises trade-in values for most iPhone, iPad, Mac, and Apple Watch models. Marcus Mendez writes, Apple updated its trade-in values table today, increasing offers for most of its products, with some devices seeing jumps of nearly 30%. The company also added several Samsung Galaxy, Google Pixel, and OnePlus models to the list. So John did some homework and some mathematics and came up with some examples. The iPhone 16 Pro is now $630, up 11%. Apple Watch Series 10, $165, up 9%. The iPad Pro, I'm not sure what vintage, John, but I guess it doesn't really matter, $720, up 4%. And MacBook Air, $580, up 10%.
Yeah, we were talking about this before, like people complaining, oh, they raised the prices on all their stuff, but have they raised trade-in values? No. Well, now they have, but I look at the percentages, and remember when we read the percentages of how much the prices of this stuff was increasing? I know it was not apples to apples because the watches weren't included in that price increase or whatever, but As you might expect, the trade-ins are increasing by a lower percentage, not just a lower amount, because obviously trade-ins, you get less money than a new device, but a lower percentage than a lot of their sibling devices. And we're reading like iPhone 16 Pro trade-in values, not necessarily iPhone 17 Pro. But anyway, you see the 9to5 Mac story for the full table. But the news is basically it's good that Apple is finally increasing the trade-in value because that's what the market is dictating for these devices. But it's bad for all of us that the trade-in values are increasing by less than the new device prices are increasing.
We are sponsored this week by Tailscale. So if you're an ATP listener, it is likely that you have at least a couple of devices that you may want to be able to talk to. For perhaps your Mac and a Synology. Maybe you have a device at a friend's or a parent's house. Maybe you have a Raspberry Pi at a parent's house to help with troubleshooting or something like that. Maybe you have 48 Mac Minis in a co-location facility. You never know, it could happen. Well, imagine you could talk to any of these other devices, no matter what network you're on or what network they're on. If you use a special IP address provided by Tailscale, or hostname for that matter, as long as both these devices are on your Tailnet, you will be able to talk to them. Tailnet is amazing. It busts through firewalls. It busts through network address translation. It does amazing things. Tailscale has compensated us to talk to you about their software, but they cannot pay me to say this is possibly my favorite software I've used in years and years and years and years. It is so good. So what Tailscale does is, like I said, it creates a mesh network between all your devices. This is different, mind you, than Hub and Spoke. And despite the fact that it uses WireGuard, which is a VPN technology, you shouldn't think of it as a VPN. It's really its own thing. And what makes it so magical is that no matter what network you're on, no matter what continent you're on, and what network or continent your target device is on, you will be able to talk between your devices on your Tailnet. It is truly incredible. And not having to care where you are when it comes to accessing your other machines and devices is amazing. It's so freeing. So here's the thing. Tailscale's personal plan will be free forever. They've regularly committed to that. And it's free forever for up to 6 users and unlimited devices. They have been making it more and more permissive over time. True story. There's no credit card required. They'll never even hint to asking for one. They don't even care. So you can go to tailscale.com/accidentaltech to get started. And additionally, if you'd like to bring Tailscale to work, you can use the code accidentaltech for 3 free months of any paid plan. Thousands of companies like Microsoft, NVIDIA, and the New York Times have already made the switch. So go to tailscale.com/accidentaltech, TAILSCALE.com/ACCIDENTALTECH to get started. Thank you to Tailscale for sponsoring the show. Any real news going on this week, Marco?
Not really this week, but last week I did something pretty big.
All right, Captain Pedantic. Fair enough. Congratulations on shipping. This is very exciting.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I shipped my new app, Unforgetful. I'm finally saying the name aloud on this podcast for the first time. This is the app. I've talked obliquely about it for a while on this show. I started writing it back in February. This is my reminder app that basically takes over the job of reminder notifications and does a kind of a different philosophy on them than Apple's built-in reminders app that better fits my brain. The core of the problems that I was trying to solve is related, I think, to my undiagnosed but fairly obvious adult ADHD. When a reminder is out of sight, it's out of mind. If I don't get notified for something, it's not going to happen. And for a while, I wrote a blog post announcing the app, and it's fairly personal, and I kind of go through like my a brief history of growing up being a very forgetful person and not really having any kind of useful diagnosis, because I think if you forgot all your homework when you were not hyperactive in the 90s, you were just lazy, and there's lots of awful psychological baggage that resulted from that that has affected lots of us, myself included, from that generation. But I realized that tools can help me. And throughout my adult life, what has helped me by far more than anything else has been calendar alerts. If there's a calendar event I have to do, I set alerts on it and I get notified. And I get notified a lot, and I do them. And that's the only way I ever do anything is with calendar alerts. And I wanted something similarly effective for to-dos, like tasks, reminders, whatever the term is that you want to use, it's all the same thing. There was a huge advantage that I got with reminders once Siri got good enough that I could, anywhere I was, dictate a new reminder. And people in my life, they'll see me all constantly. People around me will see me like take out my phone, remind me in 15 minutes, take out the trash, like, stuff like that. And even for things that are really minor that most people would think, why would you need a reminder to do that? Why didn't you just remember? I don't remember. I need the reminder. And this has served me very well as an adult for the most part, but there's been a few exceptions. Most notably, if I don't get reminded at a particular time, I never open the Reminders app. And part of that is because I hate the Reminders app. It is not at all what I want it to be. A lot of people love it, so I'm not going to say it sucks or anything. Like, it seems like it works great for a lot of people. It does not work great for me. I don't get the organization of it at all. I never know which of the screens I want to be on. They're all full of different subsets that are not useful to me. Lots of things are overdue. Lots of things are from the past. Lots of things are from the distant future. And it's hard for me to figure out like what screen I need to be on to see whatever I need to do and whatever's active right now. The other problems with reminders are, again, my main UI or my main interaction with it is voice for input and notifications for output. The voice part is okay. It's a little unreliable in former versions of iOS. In iOS 27, the one that's currently in beta, it takes a significant step backwards. I think dictating reminders to Siri in iOS 27 is awful. Now, this has changed a little bit throughout the betas, so maybe it won't ship awful in the fall, but that's only a few weeks away, and it's still not great. It is starting to ask me fewer asinine clarifying questions in later betas, but it's still really slow now. It's way slower than it was in previous OSs. And it's doing all these smart LLM things, and that's wonderful for lots of other reasons, but for creating reminders, it's a pretty big step backwards. I didn't know that was going to happen when I started making my reminder app, which is now, as you know, is named Unforgetful. I didn't know that at the time. I started it in February, but over the course of the summer, I've realized like, I need to ship this app now, because I think a lot of people in the fall, as they get used to this new version, they're going to realize, dictating reminders in Siri is pretty rough now. Anyway, that's a side diversion.
But how does Unforgetful help with that? Aren't you still dictating reminders to Siri to put things into Unforgetful?
So it helps in a few ways. So that was a diversion. I'll get back to that in a minute. But the short version is that's why I have a dictation feature in Unforgetful. That feature didn't exist before like last month. But I realized, oh man, this beta is so painful for dictating reminders with Siri. I should also probably have a fast dictation thing. So what I did was I built a dictation engine, and as of a few days ago, the 102 update also enables some natural language processing on that input that's very, very fast. So you can say, you can hit the microphone and you can say, tomorrow 9 a.m., buy milk. And it will actually schedule it for tomorrow at 9 a.m. and it will parse that out of the title as you'd expect. Also with that, I optimized the design of the widgets and lock screen controls and everything else to provide lots of easy, fast ways into dictation mode. I mean, there's widgets everywhere. There's control center controls. You can long press the app icon. All of those things will give you options for jumping right into the microphone recording mode. I even made it so that when you fire one of those off, it does not even animate the sheet presentation for the dictation mode. It just pops it in. So you save, 0.4 seconds there or whatever it is. I want it to be so fast. And what I have it mapped to is I put the microphone button on my lock screen in the bottom right, because I made a lock screen widget also. So you can add it to wherever the system allows widgets. You can put it on the action button, like whatever you want to do. There's Mac controls that I think work. It's really weird. Mac controls, it's really weird. Like the new Control Center API thing for the Mac. It's very, very strange, but I think it works. But for me, my fast capture mode is the microphone button on my lock screen on my phone. And that jumps right into it and lets me record. It's so much faster than Siri. But anyway, going back to kind of the purpose of the app, for me, it's all about fast capture and ubiquitous fast captures. And I can still use Siri if I can't easily reach the phone or whatever. And then also on the notification side, it is very important to me that no task ever get into a state that it does not ever notify me again, because that happens too easily with reminders. For me, it happens in two big ways. Number one, if I forget to set a reminder date, If I just say to Siri somewhere, remind me to buy milk, it will never remind me because I didn't say, it's like Simon didn't say, I didn't say remind me tomorrow to buy milk. I didn't say remind me in 15 minutes to buy milk. I just said remind me. So it'll be like, all right, well, I added it to reminders. And so that's on you. Good luck. And that kind of, like, I will never look at it. I will never find it again. The other way that you can lose things in reminders if you are me is say remind me in 15 minutes and it notifies you in 15 minutes. And if you don't snooze that notification, if you do anything else, if you ignore it, if you accidentally swipe it away and dismiss it in any other way, if you clear notifications, whatever, if that notification, if anything else happens to it besides you hitting snooze, it will never notify you again. So you have one chance. And this is not a good recipe for success if your brain works like my brain. The original concept of Unforgetful back in February was mainly to just solve those two problems, just notifications that will constantly remind me over and over again until something is actually marked complete. Now, there's an app called DUE, that does this. We've talked about it before. Lots of people like it. Totally fine app. It's not really for me. Like, I don't really love the UI and some of the mechanics of it, but it's that kind of concept for notifications. So like, if you want, to avoid getting a bunch of emails, this app already exists. I'm very aware. Thank you. And it's a perfectly fine app.
My life has for years now been managed by, well, since forever, it's been managed by my calendar, and anything that isn't a calendar item is in the DUE app. Like, this is how I run my life. And I think that, if Unforgetful was out years ago, then I probably would have put all of those things into that instead. But I've got so many freaking things in Do now to move them over would be quite a burden. But no, if Unforgetful is for you, that's perfect. If Do is for you, that's fine too. But they're both very analogous in certain ways and very different in other ways.
Yeah, and what I've realized, so I decided fairly early on I wanted to actually release this app to the public. And it has been a very interesting journey, I think, for me, in part because it's a very narrowly focused app. This is an app that you either know immediately it's for you, or you know immediately it's not for you. and this has been an interesting, it's been interesting, like, looking through the feedback and trying to figure out how I should deal with that feedback. Because for me, the app it's very powerful if I keep that philosophy of it will always remind you, no matter what, of every task in it. And it doesn't, it can space it out by a few hours or tomorrow or whatever, but like it will never stop reminding you of a task until you mark it done. Critically, it reads and writes your data from reminders, from the system reminders database. It isn't just an import, it isn't a one-way thing. It reads it and it writes it back to that same database. So there is no import or export. You can use Unforgetful with reminders, or you can use it with other apps that use the reminders database, or you can use it for a while and never look at reminders forever again, or you can, at the end of that, decide, you know what, I want to go back to reminders, just delete Unforgetful, and reminders is still right there, and all your information is still right there. So it's very flexible in that. One of the downsides of that, though, is that when somebody tries out Unforgetful for the first time, it shows everything in their reminders database. And you can select different sub-lists if you want to, like, only restrict it to, like, one list or whatever. You don't want your grocery list in there, that's fine. But one of the most common feedback points I get is people saying, oh my God, it filled it up with all these tasks that I had scheduled for the distant future but with no due dates. I don't want those in there. Now, I even ran a poll yesterday on Mastodon for about an hour. I deleted it early. But I ran a poll asking basically, like, hey, what do you want Unforgetful to do with tasks that have no due date? Because to me, I always interpreted that to mean I'm never going to do that, as I mentioned earlier, because, like, I'm never going to be notified of this, so therefore it's a failure. It'll never happen. It's invisible. That's not something I want to allow. But about half of respondents to the poll said they want basically like a someday section in the app. And so I mocked it up, put it in the app, and I ran it, a couple of test builds, and I played with it myself, and I'm like, I don't think I should add this. Like, because to me, a someday section means I'm never going to do it. And a someday task just becomes a bucket to dump stuff in that I'm never going to do. And my philosophy is, if I'm never going to do it, I should just delete it. And no shame attached to that. Like, just delete it. this is a list of things that I intend to do, not a list of things that I'm probably never going to do.
You mentioned what people were calling these things when they talked to you about them. Oh, when I put a reminder in the reminders, but I don't have a due date because it's stuff for the far future. When I heard you say that, I'm like, well, if it's for the far future, it should have a date on it for the far future. And
right.
Perhaps not coincidentally, I have a reminders list called Far Future that has dates in it, that has reminders in it that are in the far future. And they all have dates, but they are in the far future. And the reason they're in that sub list is because I don't want to see them in my like regular reminders list because I know they're like 2, 3, 4 years from now, but they all have dates on them. So, I mean, I'm not going to convince anyone to change how they use reminders. Everyone uses the apps the way they want to use it. But it's just, I was surprised by the 50% response in that poll as well, because I feel like, look, if you really want this to be in the far future, set it for, I don't know the exact date. Fine. Set it for, on the closest you can get within a year. 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, just make a guess and throw it in there, because anything is better than no date at all. And I'd never even thought about the idea of reminders without dates. If I ever get a reminder without a date, it's because of a failure of dictation and I'd immediately fix it.
Right, exactly. Like I'd never intend that. And that's part of why so Unforgetful, it treats undated reminders like they're due today. On the next hour boundary, it's going to remind you. And then you can decide what to do with it. You can say, remind me tomorrow. You can change it. You can snooze it. You can change it. You can, whatever you want to do. Anyway, so when people were asking for this, I thought like, well, my instinct was like with Overcast. With Overcast, my goal is a broad audience. I want Overcast to be the podcast app for everybody. Most people, I think, their needs for podcasts should be solved with Overcast. Obviously, that's a little bit different now with like video and stuff, but like the idea generally with Overcast was like, I want this to be broad market. So my instinct, when I got this feature request of like undated tasks, what should happen? Everyone wants a someday section. My instinct was to build it. So that's why I did. And I tried it. And as I was like trying to write the wording for the setting in the setting screen, I was like, I hate this. It felt like, to use a wonderful programmerism, it felt like I was giving people a foot gun. If you're using Unforgetful, if this app is what you need, then if I allow you to have an entire category of tasks that you never get reminded about, this is not the app for you. Like, if that's what you want, this is not the app for you. And
then look for our sister app, Forgetful.
Right? Like, and I've been very careful when designing Unforgetful, like that, to make it impossible to fail at your task. That's the whole goal. If you have a reminder, Unforgetful will do whatever it can to make sure that you don't forget about it. That's the whole point of the app. That's why it's called that. And by the way, naming it, oh my God, I'll get to that. But so with this app, I'm being very conscious. Like one of the unfortunate limitations of the Reminder API event kit, there's a lot of fields that Reminders supports that I don't have access to. I can't even tell if a Reminder has them or not. So one of them is subtask relationships. Reminders, I think a few years ago, Reminders added the ability to make subtasks under a task. This is a common feature of apps like Things and OmniFocus, all like the big task management apps. And the idea is you can make a project, make like a top level task. That's the project, and then you have the sub check marks of like, all right, we'll do this, and then the project is complete. That's great. There's a place for that. But I decided early on, like, first of all, since I couldn't see those relationships, well, I can't support them anyway. But also, that's fine. This app is not the app to manage that type of project. If you, like, this is the app to manage call the doctor's office tomorrow. Simpler things. This is not a project management app. This is not a whole system. It's not even really ideal for like collaborating with people. I might change that at some point, but like it's, Reminders has the concept of like shared lists, and I admit I haven't actually done that much testing on that because that's not really what it's for. And there's all these different features. There's tags and organization features that I just, not only do I not have access to thanks to the API, but I'm not going to build those features, because what is tagging and, folders and everything, what is that used for? It's used to hide things selectively. I don't want to hide things selectively. I never want to hide things selectively. That's the whole point of the app. And so I am taking this different philosophy with this app of like, again, this is either for you or it's not for you. It's very hard for me to remember that when I'm reading all the feedback and, some of it's positive, some of it's not. But what makes it very encouraging is like, on this point specifically about like the undated tasks, whether they should be like in a someday bucket or remind you right now. I heard from a few people already, I think 3 or 4 people already, who have said initially they were mad that all their someday tasks all landed up there immediately and they were getting reminded. But now they've set due dates. Like John was just saying, like they just set dates or got rid of them or did them. And now it's fine. And I'm like, you know what? That actually tells me this is a success. It is 100% the right move for me never to add that feature. Because what I want is that outcome. I want you to either be reminded or complete them or set a date in the future. And I don't care if that date's 5 years from now. Fine, whatever. Set it as far in the future as you need to set it, as you know, to match your intention. But if your intention is do this someday, well, how about you get reminded about it once a month till you do it? Because otherwise, it's not going to happen.
I just looked at my far future list, by the way, to see what was in there, and I realized I have to check off one of them because we already talked about it on the show. It was the do AirPods Max 2 exist? Scheduled for early September. We already did that.
Was that for a bet that we had? Was that one of our bet things?
Yeah, we had. I was like, I think we talked about it in when they came out, and like, I just looked it up. It's like episode 683. It was a bet, and I won. Yay! Anyway, I will check that off. Now there are fewer items on my far future list.
So let me tell you about naming this app. I consider myself fairly good at naming things.
Do you?
Oh,
wow.
Yikes.
I was going to say this name is a very Marco name. I would say that Overcast is the aberration in your experience naming things, because Overcast is a straight up the middle good name with no weirdness. Mm-hmm. This is not.
So trying to name a productivity app, a to-do app, as it turns out, this has been a pretty common need since the dawn of time. So there are a lot of task management and project management and to-do and collaboration type, like organization type productivity apps out there in the world. And many of them have existed, many of them still exist. There's many live trademarks in this world. So my naming process is, which I am pretty good at, John, but my naming...
I disagree, but okay.
My naming process is, I'll brainstorm some stuff. I'll look into root words and parts of speech and different styles. And I will say I tried having LLMs generate me name ideas, and they are just horrendous at this task. They are awful at naming things. There were some good ideas that LLMs threw at me, but they kind of got me thinking in different directions. But
you should have done that what is that? A McSweeney article about email addresses that are hard to read over the phone. Yeah. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
All right. So your app should have been called capital D, lowercase o, capital DEE, capital YOU, capital EEE. So it would be DUE.
Wow.
Because that's what everybody says when they talk about that damn app, because that app also has a problematic name.
Yeah, right.
You can't just say do. Anyway.
Yeah. So often I would come up with what I thought was a pretty good name. And then I'd go do searches. I'd do a trademark search. I'd do an app store search. And they just were all not only taken, but really taken. Taken in ways that this is still an active live company using this name. There's no, I really can't use this name. Everything was taken. And then I would often, I'd go in a different direction. Okay, well, if I can't do something descriptive, what if I do something that's not even related? I wrote it on the way to Kona, Kona, Hawaii. What if I use Kona as the name? I love that name. Nope, that's some productivity app.
Were you doing the naming after the icon? Because you could have called it Lighthouse Reminders or something?
No, the icon came after the name. I went through so many names. And so often I would land on something that was oh, that's not bad. Let me look at, oh, no, can't do that. Or I would think of some kind of metaphor, oh, what about memory? What about, elephants? They never forget. Oh, I just invented Evernote.
Evernote.
Everything's been taken. Every metaphor, everything has been taken.
Safe Harbor? Lots of lighthouse related ones.
Yeah.
Safe Harbor for ADHD people who can't remember things?
Yeah, not bad. This was the hardest naming challenge I have ever had. And I landed on Unforgetful. I don't think it's my best name ever, to be honest, but I think it's a decent name.
It has the advantage, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's not actually a word, which has the advantage of it's not going to be taken. You know what I mean? It's unique in that way. It is, it is your own branding and not just I took a word from the dictionary and called my app that.
So there is a minor issue that I hope will no longer, or I hope it won't be an issue for long. because it'll just have an established name after a while. But there's an issue that the App Store search will try to autocorrect you. If you type in Unforgetful, it'll autocorrect you to Unforgettable. Like, crap. That is actually pretty bad. But I'm hope like if that is always the case.
I'm assuming that was taken, by the way. Was Unforgettable taken?
There were some closer trademark problems with that. And I liked Unforgetful better because...
No, Unforgetful is a word, apparently.
It's like, it's a word, but it's not really a word that anybody would use. But it is technically a word. But like, I was focusing in on the like ADHD angle pretty early. And one of the key design principles of the app is it never makes you feel stress or shame. No feelings of overwhelm. That's why I didn't call it overdue, in addition to being, probably disrespectful to the Do app. I didn't want to call it overdue because that's stressful. I didn't want any feelings of stress, shame, overwhelm. So I wanted it to be lighter and encouraging, fresh starts. So things that are related to like sunrises, because every day is a new day, stuff. I looked at so many metaphors. The waves, coming in. I thought like one of the probably the best name that the LLMs came up with was Nudge, but it wasn't quite good enough for me. And I think there actually is an app called that anyway, so I couldn't use it anyway. But there's like Beacon or Ping, like okay, not bad. I wanted to call it Waves, can't do that. It's taken. I wanted to call it Reprise, even though it's my PHP framework. But it's like I tried to throw in like fish references, musical references. Every single word was taken, trademarked, like everything somewhere in the task management or productivity space that was too close for comfort. So it was just incredibly difficult to name this app. But I went with Unforgetful because, I had, of my kind of finalists, it was the one I liked the most, and it had like the least contention in the App Store. It had the least contention for search results. Like, if I can get Apple to stop autocorrecting it to a different word, it'll be great because it will be very easy to find in the App Store and it will be very high ranked.
Just put Unforgettable in your keywords.
Oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll do that. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you. Okay. As for the actual journey of programming the app, this was mostly vibe coded. Like what I wrote on the plane was mostly me learning about vibe coding. I fairly quickly realized I didn't like AI code structure very much, and that it had a lot of limitations. And so I ended up, most of the app's code, I have written it myself. I still, there is AI generated code still in there for various boring frameworky type parts of the code, like, some of the Swift UI views, like there's not that much for me to do that's distinctive there. But like the data layer, I wrote almost all of it myself. More importantly, everything dealing with dates and times and calendars and days, I wrote almost all of that myself.
Yeah, because that's the easy stuff.
Oh my God. Dealing with dates and times and everything, it's comically tricky.
Yep,
there are so many pitfalls. And fortunately, like Apple provides very nice APIs. The calendar API, the date components, like all these different parts of it, it provides very good APIs. And what I found was overall kind of like the best balance for me is I wrote the time parsing and time handling code, and then I had AI check it for bugs and write a bunch of test cases for me. I mean, I can't tell you how many tests. I think there's like 500 tests in the app, testing
still my heart.
All sorts of different edge cases, and part of why there's so many. So you might think if you are writing the reminders API, recurring task support. How do you do that? And the answer is it's actually very, very simple. All you have to do is mark a task as completed in EventKit, and reminders automatically generates the next one in its recurrence series. And that's awesome, except what if you want to tell the user when the next time will be in the UI before it happens? Like if you want to, if they're entering the recurrence rule and you want to say, this will repeat on September 1st and October 1st. What if you want to show them that? That's actually pretty helpful. There's no way to do that.
That's fun.
Huh, okay. What if you want to actually change some of these meanings? Like if you want to, like one of the features of Unforgetful is suppose you have a task that recurs every day, and you are 2 weeks behind and you haven't done it yet. If you go back and you check complete, you're going to have to check complete 13 more times to get yourself to the present day. And I thought that is awful. I've done it before. I've been there. It's horrendous. It just tells me how much of a failure I've been, and it makes me feel bad. And it's tedious and error prone. So everything about it is bad. So I'm like, I want Unforgetful. When you complete an old overdue recurring task where you've missed intervals in the intervening time, I want it to just skip all those and just get to today. Well, then that means I have to change the logic of what it means to complete a recurring task. So between wanting to display the future dates in the UI and that, I pretty quickly realized I think I need to write my own recurring task parser thing that like extrapolates the next dates forward for a recurring task. So I did. I wrote every single one of those cases. And if you look in the reminders app and you go to custom repeat thing, every single one of those, I wrote the logic for that with the calendar APIs and doing it all like, manually and myself and everything. And then I had AI go find the bugs, which I actually patting myself on the shoulder right now. I actually did okay. I didn't have that many bugs in the version I wrote, but I had more than 0 and it fixed them. And then it made 500 test cases to make sure I got them all. That was a really fun challenge, but it was a lot because dealing with dates and times, very, very tricky stuff. And just when you're making any kind of app like this, there's so many questions of like, okay, what should happen in this edge case? You might think, oh, remind me every day about these tasks or whatever. Okay, well, what if this time doesn't exist in this day? Or what if somebody says remind me on the 31st of the month and it's a month that doesn't have 30 days or it doesn't have 31 days? Or just all sorts of things. What if the person flies across the country, changes time zones between this interval? What should happen? There's so many just decisions about how things should behave in an app that deals with timed events. And so I hope what I have done here is make a system that makes sense, that is like internally consistent, coherent, predictable. I think I have. It makes sense to me. I hope it makes sense to other people. But overall, like dealing with times has been by far the most challenging part of this app.
I don't doubt it. Time arithmetic is brutal. And I actually just had a very small bug with something in call sheet. That's honestly, the story is not that interesting, but it was basic time arithmetic, gets you every time, or gets me every time. That is absolutely brutal. So now that it's out, and forgive me, I'm not trying to like cut to the end or anything like that, but what is the response been? Because it seems extremely positive from what I've seen. And it's funny because when I first saw the app, and John and I only knew about it, I don't know, like a few weeks ago, a month ago, maybe. When I first saw the app, I thought, this is great. I don't know that this is something that I personally need. And I worried that this may be something that not that many people need. Now, since this is not, your primary income, I wasn't, maybe worried was too dramatic a word, but I figured, there'll be a handful of people that like this and that'll be that. But based on just what I've seen, it seems like there are a lot of people who are looking for exactly this. So from my perspective, it looks like the response was great.
So far, it's been, I had kind of like a low bound and a high bound of what I expected. And it's basically right in the middle.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm happy with it. It's not blowing me away. It's not crushingly disappointing. It's right in the middle of what I kind of expected / hoped for. So I'd say so far it's doing well. I think the only major question mark is, so the app, it has a hard paywall with a $20 a year subscription and with a 1 month free trial. And I wanted to do a whole month free trial so people could actually like use it, like move into it, like live with it, try it, and see how it works for you before you pay me anything. Because I want you to be able to try it. And then, of course, with reminders, integration, like you can try it and all your stuff is right there. And then if it's not for you, you can leave and all your stuff is still right there in reminders. You can leave whenever you want also. So I figure like I'll make it really easy for people to try it with no pressure. And then after a month, if they're still using it, then I can get paid.
How long is the 1 month free trial?
What?
How long is the 1 month free trial?
What do you mean? It's a month.
Date math.
There it is.
That's up to Apple. I get that. That's whatever they do in App Store.
That's my question. Oh, what does Apple do? Like, so if because if you did this yourself, and well, people will complain no matter what, they would say, I bought it in a month where there's not that many days, and I bought it on the 31st, but then my subscription ended on the 28th of the next month. Not fair.
Honestly, I don't actually know how Apple handles that.
Neither do I. That's what I'm saying. Date math. It's terrible. Because in that situation, like I do this in my app, is why I thought of it. I just always give them 31 days, period. That's how I do the date math. And so you can get a 1 month thing that lasts you 2 calendar months because you span over February. You end up, you know what I mean? 31 days, no complaints. But that's just because I'm rolling it myself, which has its own problems because Apple doesn't support the kind of payments I do in my app. But dates, terrible.
Yeah. I actually, I think my usage of CloudKit is a little bit interesting, and I wanted to mention that. So I don't directly need CloudKit, at first glance, because I'm reading and writing from the reminders database, and your reminders database is probably stored in iCloud for on your iCloud account, but that's not of my concern. I just read it locally. But I started realizing I needed CloudKit for a few additional things. So one is there's a few cases where I want to store metadata about each reminder to provide some feature that I want to offer. So for instance, the snooze times are dynamic. There's a few different brackets of short, medium, and long snooze intervals. The one it offers you depends on what you picked last. So if you picked a very short interval as your last snooze, like the 15-minute one, it'll give you the set of short ones. If you picked a day to snooze it last time, it'll give you the long ones. And so I wanted to store for each reminder the last used snooze interval. And I had this idea for location triggered reminders, that the biggest problem I have with location triggered reminders is that the radius of a geofence that triggers them is 100 meters. It's a pretty big radius. And you can try to make them smaller, but they'll be less reliable. So Apple recommends in the programming guide for core location and everything, they recommend 100 meters as the smallest geofence radius, because the GPS chip in the phone is, when you're just kind of doing background polling of geofencing and not doing active turn-by-turn directions, the GPS radio is in a very low power state. It's not polling constantly, and so if you have a smaller radius that you're trying to trigger based on, you might actually miss it as you move through it. So 100 meters is the kind of the default geofence radius. Whenever you tell reminders, hey, remind me when I get home, do this. It'll remind you when you're within 100 meters of your house. That can be when you're half a block away. You might be near your house, but if you say remind me when I get home to put the milk in the fridge, I mean, hopefully you don't need that reminder, but maybe a bad example. But if you say that, it's going to remind you when you're 3 houses down in the car, or maybe 5 houses down on foot. And by the time you get into the house where the fridge is, you might have forgotten. I know I do. So for me, geofence alerts for reminders have always been not particularly useful, because it's I don't want to be reminded when I'm driving up near the house. I want to be reminded when I'm in the house, when I can actually do something about this task, because I don't want to forget in the intervening time. And so I wanted to add delayed triggers for notifications. I wanted to add, all right, make it so I can set myself to remind me 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes after I get to a location. Remind me of this thing then. That way I'm once I'm in the house, jacket's off, stuff's put down, I'm settled, then I can actually do something. So I had to store a field on reminders. And I also wanted to be able to do things, just for future features, if I want to add URL support or whatever. I can't read reminders URLs. Thanks, EventKit. Please, if there's one thing, I would love to be able to read URLs. But the ability to add fields, you can't really do it in EventKit. There is no way in EventKit to add arbitrary metadata to reminders. Now, other apps have come up with various hacks for this. Sometimes they'll try to cram it into the notes field. They'll put an identifier in the notes field, or they'll just actually literally write the metadata right into the notes field. And that's fine. I wanted to avoid that if I could, or if there was a better solution. And then, totally separately from that, I ran into an issue during testing one day. For the notifications to work best, ideally, you turn off reminders notifications and you leave Unforgetful notifications on, and it replaces reminders notifications. But Unforgetful on the phone is limited by iOS's background refresh intervals. If you don't allow it to background refresh, or if you tell Siri on your phone, remind me in 3 minutes to do something, and Unforgetful doesn't have a chance to background refresh itself in that 3-minute span, it's not going to be able to notify you because it doesn't know about that reminder yet. Now, I have a Mac version too. It's a Mac and iOS app. The Mac version can constantly monitor. So as soon as the Mac gets a new reminder through iCloud or Siri or whatever, the Mac app instantly knows, here it is, and it can create a notification for it. So I'm like, what if I use iCloud background refresh triggering? When the Mac app sees a new reminder, if it's running on a Mac somewhere and you're out somewhere with your phone, it can send a CloudKit silent push to the phone. And I thought, oh my God, that's how to do it. So I started using CloudKit for that. And this is why when the Mac app gives one of those annoying confirmation messages when you try to close it, like Chrome, because I actually don't recommend that you close the Mac app ever. Because if the Mac app is running, it can do this. It can pick up it can pick up new reminders immediately, and then send a CloudKit push to wake up the phone app, so the phone picks them up way faster than if it has to wait for a background refresh.
Can you make the Mac app just run in the background, like make a little background job, faceless background job?
I had it as one of those like dock or menu bar or both toggles. I think I'm going to put that back.
But I think there's a way you can get it totally in the background. And the reason I think so is because Golden Gate puts icons in the menu bar for apps that are doing stuff in the background.
I don't think I want to deal with that, but I definitely would like to. I'd probably, in one of the nearby future versions, I'm probably going to add an option to put it just in the menu bar, because a lot of people have requested that. Anyway, so that's why I recommend if you run the Mac app all the time if you can, because that will keep your phone app up to date faster. Anyway, so I had to. I dealt with CloudKit for that, and then I'm like, this was kind of like midway through the summer as I'm trying to figure out what to do with these different features that I want to have metadata for, like the delayed notification or delayed location triggers and things like that, and the dynamic snooze. I was like, well, now that I'm using CloudKit and Fable was out, and I'm like, Fable's really good at coding. What if Fable writes me a bridge between my Blackbird database and CloudKit? I've been planning to do this forever. I called it Skybridge, and I made a prototype back in the day. I never finished it. So I had Fable look at my prototype, and using the style that I use and the Blackbird mechanics that I use, just finish it. Like, take this prototype and finish it and test it and make it good and make it work and fix the bugs. And it did. So, and this, you can actually see what it did. There's, if you look at my Blackbird library is open source, and there's a branch named Fable. Skybridge is in there, and you can use it if you want. It's just automatically syncs a Blackbird table to CloudKit, and it's awesome. I'm so happy about this. Like, when it did that, I'm like, oh my God, this would have taken me a week to do this myself, and my version would have had more bugs. And it would have taken me another month after that to find them all and fix them all. And I never would have had tests. I'm so happy to have this. And since having Skybridge, and since I already did all the work on Blackbird, it's a fully functional Blackbird app with no servers, just with CloudKit as the sync backend. So now I can add arbitrary metadata to any reminder whenever I want. And if I want to add another column, it's no big deal. I just do it. And I go to this, the CloudKit dashboard and publish the changes and all that stuff. But like, it's fine. What a game changer that has been. So I'm now able to do good features like that. Anyway, so I thought the CloudKit store was a little bit interesting on that, especially the background push. I think that really helps keep the app up to date. But anyway, so to actually answer your question, Casey, from 1,000 years ago, how the reception has been. Again, kind of what I was saying earlier about with Overcast versus this, like, I'm having to exercise a lot of discipline, not adding every feature everybody asks for. Because if somebody's asking me for things like, folders and organization, I can confidently say, if you're looking for this app to do that, it's not really the app for you, or this is not the app for that job. And if you use reminders that way, like I was listening to our friend Steven Robles over on Mac Power Users, he recently made a Kanban app. He vibe coded the whole app. It was great. It's a good episode from Mac Power Users. I think it was last week. We'll link to it. He was describing how he used reminders before he made his own app. And he was a super power user of reminders, using things like subtasks and tags and all these. And like, I've never used it that way. I've never used anything that way. I've tried using OmniFocus back in the day. I tried using Things back in the day. I would stick with them for a little while, and then it would fall on the floor, and I'd forget about it. And I think everybody with ADHD type tendencies, I think this is a very familiar story. This is a category of apps that gets a lot of like tire kicking. Like, hey, I can be the kind of person who organizes my stuff this way. And you do it for like a little while. You do it for, maybe you can stick with it for a few days or a few weeks, or maybe if you're lucky, a couple of months. But then you stop checking it. Like, this is why I've never gotten into like paper notebooks. Even like my journey into Remarkable tablets, I would just eventually stop looking at them. I would stop checking them. And that's been true of everything I've ever done that can't notify me constantly. So I can pretty confidently state what I want this app to be and what it is and what it isn't. It is not an organizational system. It is an automated nagging machine to get you to do stuff. If that's what you need, it's very effective. That is not what a lot of people need, though. There are a lot of people out there who need it, but like, I think if you poll the average people out there in the world, it's not going to be the majority who need this. If I take 100 people off the street and I describe this app to them, half of them are going to look at me like I'm crazy. I think about 40 of them are going to be like, I don't really need it. And then maybe 10 of them are going to be like, oh my God, yes, I need that. That's kind of what I'm looking at. And I don't really know how to reach those people. I'm learning. I'm going to do a lot of experiments with different types of ads and trying to find different audiences, targeting different ads in different ways. I really have no idea how to market this app. And I don't think it's ever going to be a mass appeal thing because it doesn't have mass appeal. To be a mass appeal task management app, you have to have a lot of features and enable a lot of different ways of working. Like that's, Things and OmniFocus, like these apps are great for that because they're very customizable. They have very, very deep features and broad feature sets. So those kinds of apps, whatever your system is, they allow you to mold the app to execute your system. That's not this. This is the app for people who systems don't work for. And I'm very confident keeping it that way. Because if for some reason you out there, if your brain works like mine, if you can forget something 5 minutes after someone told you, this app might be for you. And there's enough of you out there. There's enough of us.
Dozens.
I'm confident it can. Yeah, I'm confident that this can be a reasonable business. I don't think it's ever going to be anywhere near the size of Overcast in terms of either user base or income. I would be shocked if it ever came near it. I think I'd be happy with a tenth of it. But I know that there's other people like me out there. And if you are out there, and if you want a better reminders app for yourself, try Unforgetful. See how it works for you. Give it the month free trial. If you don't like it, don't worry. Delete it. Go back to reminders. No big deal. But give it a shot. Because I think there's a lot more of us out there than we realize. But I don't know how to reach us. So help me out.
Did you get Unforgetful in the App Store? Like no colon suffix?
No, I didn't even try.
You always got to try.
No, you don't, because the way the App Store search works, look, I had Overcast no colon forever, but I stopped using it because App Store search is brutal. You have to jam your title and your subtitle and your keywords full of every keyword you can think of, and where you put them matters. Which of those fields they're in, it matters. If there's a phrase and both words appear in the title or subtitle, that matters more than if they're split across the two fields. Like there's all these different things with App Store search optimization. I wish the App Store search wasn't so dumb, but it is, and this is the environment I operate in. So if you want your App Store app to succeed, you have to do things like shove a bunch of keywords in the title and the subtitle. You just have to. So the idea of not doing that, it never was a possibility.
So what is your subtitle?
Never lose a task. Oh, that's a
good one.
That's after the colon.
When I was searching for apps called Nag, of which there are many, One of them has a good subtitle, which is NAG, and they use a hyphen instead of a colon, which I think is a mistake. But anyway, NAG, Relentless Reminders. That sounds more like do, actually.
That's actually not, that's a decent title. I like that.
Because yours, you didn't mention this, but I think is everyone should read Margot's post about this because it's really good and explains even more stuff, if you can imagine. And one of the key things that I didn't realize until I read your post about it, I'd been test flighting the app, but I just thought it was like doing weird stuff because the reminders sync stuff. But this app's tagline being Relentless Reminders. Unforgetful is intentionally not relentless. Like if you have a bunch of notifications that would normally show up like all at the same time, you space them out so as not to throw a pile of crap on top of people, which would never have occurred to me that you were doing that intentionally. And it's why it's why Never Lose a Task is a much better subtitle for your app than Relentless Reminders, because you're trying not to be relentless. I mean, you're relentless in a gentle way, I guess.
Well, yeah, because again, like, so that again, that goes back to some key design things. No shame. Try to minimize any way to feel overwhelmed. And so, obviously, look, I'm not great at keeping up with my to-dos. Obviously, what happens frequently is sometimes I'll get to a state where, like, for a week, I will every day be deferring to tomorrow, like 7 to 10 different tasks. And my default tomorrow time, 9 a.m., what would happen then is at 9 a.m., I would get 7 to 10 notifications. Now, on what happens on modern Apple platforms is they stack and they get summarized. And so if that happens every day, and if every single day you get the same 7 notifications at 9 a.m. that you've been deferring for a week, you're going to only see the top one. And maybe you're going to see the weird summary of it, instead. But that's it. You're not going to see the ones that are buried in the middle, which means they're never going to get done. And this has multiple issues. Number one, you feel hopeless. Oh my God, it's another system I've lost track of. It's too big. I've lost control. I'm a failure and I must just bury it and never look at it again. So that's obviously a failure mode that I'm trying to avoid. So that's where the spacing came out. If you have 7 things that are going to all remind you at 9 a.m., I'm going to space them out by your interval that you set. You can customize it. You can set it to 0 if you don't want them spaced out. But you can say, like, just remind me, space them out every 15 minutes. That way, every 15 minutes, as you're working, you get 1 notification. And you can look at it and you can say, oh, you know what, fine, I will finally call the doctor. But also, to avoid the stacking problem. And this is, again, this is like, if you think this sounds insane, your brain doesn't work the way ours do. It also matters what order you're reminded in. So I built a feature that randomizes the order, and it uses a seeded, predictable random number generator, and it's seeded based on the date. So that way your Mac and your phone randomize them in the same way every day. So no matter what device you're on, you're going to get a randomized order of those tasks that stack up every day. The ones that are scheduled for the same time. They change every day in a random order. It's the same on all your devices. So that way, when you get that stack notifications, nothing ever gets lost in the middle forever. Because every day it's in a different order. It's going to be on top eventually. So you will see it. And like, this is the kind of problem that a functioning human being whose brain does not work the way mine does would be like, why are you letting them stack? I've never had things stack up that I'm just deferring for a week straight. Why don't you just do them instead of deferring them for a week? Yeah, but that's not how my brain works. So the way I work, such as it is a lot of snoozing, a lot of deferrals, a lot of things eventually happening in batches or being given up on. That's the type of feature that I build in here. That's what this app is for. And if you're, again, for the 90% of you out there who are like, that's insane, this is probably not for you. But for the 10% of you out there who are like, oh, I would actually really use that. Try it. I assure you, this might work for you.
Oh, this is very exciting. Congratulations again. I am pleased to see another entry in your, I don't know, arsenal isn't the word I'm looking for, but in your repertoire, whatever you want to call it. This is very, very exciting news, and you should be very proud and very happy, and I hope you're both of those things.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you finally come over to my side and started making weird little apps that most people don't like.
Oh, well, if you want a weird little app that most people don't like, let me tell you the story about Fast Text.
Yeah, honestly, like, I find it very, very interesting. Like, as I've talked about recently, my job in Overcast has evolved to really be more of a caretaker. of Overcast. I can't really change that much about it without angering a lot of people. What people want from me with Overcast is not tons of change. They want just keep the app the same-ish, keep it working, keep it good, fix any bugs, and do my pet feature. Like that. That's what everyone. But nobody wants me to really change Overcast. And so Unforgetful was a chance for me to do something very different. This is it's from scratch. It had no existing user base, so I could do whatever I wanted, especially with a very small focused user base like it's going to have. So it was a very different creative itch. It was a very different problem space. It's my first productivity app I've ever released. I've never done anything productive. In fact, I make apps that distract people from their productivity usually.
Oh, how quickly we forget about Quitter.
I guess that's kind of productive.
I'm mostly giving you a hard time.
And the chapter thing, what's it called?
Forecast. Yeah, but the Forecast is a very limited release.
The productivity tool. If you had to pick the category in the App Store, you'd pick productivity.
Maybe media. Anyway, so yeah, this is basically my first productivity tool, my first serious one, my first one that I'm actually charging money for, my first one that's really a business. It's also my first Mac App Store app. And in general, I don't make a lot of Mac apps at all. So it's one of my first Mac apps. So there's a lot of, kind of firsts for me in this. And as an app developer, that's always exciting. That's always very interesting.
Yeah.
So I've really enjoyed it quite a lot, and I continue to enjoy it. And frankly, if no one else ever uses it, I'll be disappointed, but I'm still going to use it. That's like Forecast. I use Forecast every week. That's how I edit the show. Even though Forecast is not a major app and I haven't actually issued an update in many years, I still use it constantly. No matter how many people use this app, I'm going to use it myself all the time. And therefore, I'm very happy with it. And I hope other people find it. I hope it's good for them too. By all means, please try it. But if not, hey, it's at least going to be good for me.
All right, so there's been a lot of news, hand-wringing, I don't know what you want to call it. There's been a lot of stuff going on with regard to AI watermarking. Now, we're going to be talking a lot, perhaps primarily, about Anthropic's Claude, and it's worth noting that they are certainly a former sponsor, I believe a future sponsor as well. So I just want to make that plain up front. But with that said, let's talk about what they're up to. So Anthropic wrote that Anthropic has signed the EU AI Act's Article 502 Code of Practice on Transparency of AI-Generated Content. Here's what this means for Claude. New models will mark AI-generated content from day one. Claude models launched in the EU on or after August 2nd will support machine-readable marking at launch. Generated text will carry embedded watermarks, and generated files will include digitally signed provenance metadata where supported. We'll help you detect Claude's marks. We'll support users and other third parties to detect Claude's marks as the code requires, and we'll share details in forthcoming documentation. Existing models are in progress. The law includes a transition period for Anthropic models launched before August 2nd, and we're working to add marking support for those models as well.
It's a very long press release that goes on, but we're not going to read all of it. But the initial question would be, why are they doing this? And the easy answer is, well, they just said why they're doing it. It's one of those EU regulations. Apparently, EU has this, this AI Act that says you have to, put some marking on your AI output so it can be identified as AI. And there's lots of systems that do that. There's a couple of standards that do that. A big one that Adobe supports that I can never remember the acronym for. But those usually in the context of like, we want AI generated images. We want some way so that we can detect that they're AI generated. And there's like, a metadata sidecar that you can stick on the image that has some cryptographic info that says this was AI generated, blah, blah, blah. And obviously all the systems, they can just strip off the metadata sidecar, just like you strip off location data from a photo. And it's like, yeah, but this is like an advisory system for people who want to participate in the process and maybe it fulfills some regulations and blah, blah, blah. Then the next level is like, when we have our AI image generator can use like steganography, I think that's what it's called, where you put like secret hidden data in the pixels that humans can't see, but that AI can see. And that's harder to strip out. But of course, you can still strip it out because, you can change the pixels. But at least that's clever. It's not like a metadata sidecar thing. It's not really sidecar. The metadata is in the file. But anyway, you know what I mean? Like they would change the pixels as a way to do it. But then you get to things like AI generated text. And you're like, how the hell are you going to watermark text? Are you going to, because text, unlike an image, usually text files don't have a place where you can shove metadata that's not visible. The whole point of a plain text file, it's a sequence of Unicode code points or whatever, encoding scheme it is. And that's it. There's no other, like, images have all sorts of stuff in them that doesn't get displayed when you display the image, but text files don't. That's what makes them text files. So how are you going to watermark text files? I forgot to look this up, but like watermark is derived from, I'm assuming, when they would like take a piece of paper and put a mark on it. I don't know if they actually ever use water, but like if you held it up to the light, you could see, you see it on like paper currency in our country sometimes. Anyway, that's the derivation of it. But like, again, with a plain text file, what are you going to do with a plain text so I can identify it as AI generated, unless maybe at the very end it says by Claude. Right? So that's the problem they're faced with. But why are they doing it? Like, why, again, with the image stuff, it's like, oh, we want to do this to be nice. And so people know when things are AI generated and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's not a security thing. We're not fooling anybody because obviously anyone can just remove the watermark. But it's like, we're trying to do this to be nice. There is one other angle that I hear everybody talking about with this. And I have no idea if this is in Anthropic's mind at all. I don't know if it's just a happy accident, because the EU regulation, I think, doesn't say anything about this. But the angle is, first, the premise that when AI models are training on stuff, that they don't do well if they are trained on like their own output, like, or the output of other models, right? So they want to train on stuff that was not AI generated. If you train an AI on an AI generated output, it just kind of goes into a degenerative loop and things get worse and worse. So I've heard. I don't know the foundation of that, but that's what I've heard. And so the idea here is, why would Anthropic do this? Besides, obviously, complying with the EU regulation, like Claude is doing it, Anthropic's doing it worldwide, which is just a simplification, I think, which is what Apple should do in response to EU regulations. But anyway, they're saying, oh, they're doing it so they won't accidentally train their next model on stuff that was generated by any of their current models. Because when their models go out there, they'll be like, oh, yum, yum, training data, munch, 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 steal everybody's data. Wait, our watermark detector has detected that this data was generated by us. So we won't consume that because we think it will make our model worse. That sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I think it's plausible. Again, assuming the whole idea that if models train on AI generated output, they get worse, which also sounds plausible to me. So keep that in the back of your mind. I mean, we're not going to read the whole rest of this press release, but we will eventually read something else from Anthropic about this topic, about, why is Anthropic doing this besides the fact that they have to comply with the regulations? And how does this apply to other companies? Anthropic's not the only one doing this, obviously. This EU law applies to everybody, and Google has something similar, and so on and so forth. So keep that in the back of your mind as we continue here. But, getting back to my earlier question is like, okay, so I can see how you can watermark an image, whether with metadata or with like clever changing of pixels, but how the hell do you watermark text? And that's the question everyone had in their mind. This story has mostly taken place already between two episodes of the show, so we luckily have the benefit of time passing. But in the beginning, everyone was like, the press release didn't say how they were going to do it. It was like, how are they going to do this? How are you going to watermark a plain text file?
All right, I'm going to do a lot of reading, so boys, feel free to interrupt me. All right, how Claude's text watermark works. This is from Anthropic. In this article, we share answers to some of the questions we've received about how our chosen watermarking method works. We use a method of watermarking that does not have any practical impact on the quality or content of Claude's outputs. The difference between watermarked and unwatermarked text will not be distinguishable to readers. Nothing is added to the text, and there are no hidden characters. Watermarking doesn't require extra tokens and will not be more expensive. Watermarking carries no identifying information and can't be traced to a specific person, organization, or chat. Watermarking won't be specific to Claude. As of August 2nd, the EU requires AI providers serving its market to mark AI-generated content. Other major model developers have signed the same code of practice and will be implementing their own watermarks. The watermark only applies to words Claude chooses. When Claude proofreads text written by a person, what it gives back has generally only been lightly edited. Depending on the length of the text and how heavily Claude has edited it, those changes might not be enough to make Claude's involvement detectable. The more Claude writes, the more decisions it has to make, and the more space there is for a watermark. A watermark can only determine that Claude was likely involved with the content at some point. It cannot distinguish Claude wrote this from Claude heavily edited this.
So one thing that annoys me about Anthropic is, why did they wait whatever number of days to release this? Because everyone was flipping out about how it was going to work. These bullet points are very succinct and explain a bunch of stuff, and then they go on to say, basically, if Claude didn't put the word there, it's not part of the watermark, which makes sense, but it's worth saying, right? And as I said, the more word Claude puts there, the more it's watermarked. But like, obviously, if you wrote those words and Claude didn't, they don't contribute to the watermark. So you need more words. And they don't come out and say this, but I would imagine the watermark I think they do say it later that we don't have in this passage here, but the watermark detection is not thumbs up, thumbs down, yes AI, no AI. It's a confidence score. It's like, probably, maybe. Do you get a percentage? Because you can't, it's not, it's not a slam dunk case. Again, if Claude only changed 3 words, can you detect that at all? What is the threshold? Like they talk about this in, I think on another podcast, talked about it being like 200 words being the thing that you're supposed to be able to detect according to the EU regulation. But it's a little wishy-washy. But yeah, this is their explanation. And all the stuff they crossed off, no weird characters, no hidden text. It's not going to cost you more tokens. It doesn't identify you. That's all very reassuring and makes sense. But how does it actually work?
How it works. Large language models like Claude work by generating one word at a time. Each time the model decides on the next word, it chooses amongst a list of potential candidates, ultimately selecting the most sensible or likely based on the preceding text. Take the sentence, "The weather today was cold and..." The next word is very unlikely to be sugary, but it is quite likely even to be overcast, or gray. Under most circumstances, it doesn't matter much to the reader which of these latter 2 words the model ultimately chooses. The meaning of the sentence is largely the same either way. In cases like this, the choice is settled by a random number.
Now, let me pause you here, because this is my favorite, the most fun thing. I love when people have to be confronted with how these things work, because it is very difficult to hold in your mind how they work, because, it's like pet rocks or, pet pets. Like, the mental model people have of these things is so different than how they actually work that even if you explain it to them and they understand it, they will discard that immediately and go back to believing they work however, it's like a little magic elf in a machine or something, right? And so there's Anthropic, and they have to explain in like very simplified terms how their watermarking works, which requires them to discuss how their product works. They haven't gotten to the watermarking. They're just saying, here's what an LLM does. And what they're saying is, when it generates one word at a time based on the probability, based on the words that came before it, right? And when we get to the point where, we have to pick from some words that may be like roughly equally likely, we pick randomly. And someone will be reading that and say, you pick randomly? Like, this is not the watermark. This is just how LLMs work. So I can imagine if people read this, that they would be very upset by, wait a second, it's the same either way, so we just pick randomly? That's your product? This is upsetting, but anyway, continue.
Watermarking uses low-stakes choices like these, which occur many times over a piece of generated text, to leave a pattern in Claude's responses. That pattern is undetectable to the reader, but is detectable to anyone who has a key that encodes it. When watermarking is used, choices are still made at random, but the source of the randomness is different. Instead of using an arbitrary random number generator to pick the next word, watermarking uses the key and a few words that come before to settle what word the model should pick. That is, the words that Claude picks are still random, but now one can check the sequence of words and see if it's consistent with the choices Claude would make if it was using the key. If it is, one can assign a probability that the text was generated by Claude.
Amazing synergy by Marco, who just talked about the fact that he is doing random number generation, but he is, he's using pseudo-random number generator. We will link to the Wikipedia page for pseudo-random number generation, but the upshot is it's a function that you can call that gives you a random number. But like, where do random numbers come from? This is a very complicated topic. If you're not doing it for something for cryptographic or whatever, you use a simple pseudo-random number generator where you give it a seed value. And for any given seed value, the random number sequence from the random number generator, every time you call it, will be exactly the same. So if you seed it with 1, 2, 3, you're going to get the same, call it random number. They're always going to be exactly the same. It's always going to be the same, every time you call it, it's a sequence of numbers. And you're like, that doesn't sound random at all. You say, if I seed it with 1, 2, 3, and I call rand, it's going to be the same answers from each one of those. Not that each one is the same, but the first one will be 10. The next one will be 20. The next one will be 15. It'll always be 10, 20, 15, 10, 20. If you seed it with 1, 2, 3 a year from now and call it, it'll be 10, 20, 15, 10, 20, 15. It's always the same sequence. That's how pseudo-random number generators work. And there is random choice within all LLMs, and we'll get to why in a little bit by linking to all those videos where he's linked to. And what they're saying is, we always choose at random, but now we have a random number generator that we know how it will we know how it will spit out the numbers. And, like Marco doesn't know what the random numbers will be, but he knows if he seeds both of them the same way, he will get the same sequence of numbers. You don't know what those numbers will be ahead of time. but you know, like that they're going to be the same sequence. So their random number generator is obviously more sophisticated than this, but they essentially know because we decide how the random numbers are generated. We know whether, our generator, our watermarking generator was used to generate these numbers versus, some other random number. And no one is more random than the other, right? Because any of these things where you're a pseudo random number generator, what's a good seed value? Well, a good seed value is one that's not going to repeat, and one is essentially unique. So a lot of the times the current time in like microseconds since 1970 or whatever is part of the formula for the seed. But what you never want to do is use the same seed twice, because then you'll get a sequence of numbers that you've seen repeat before. But each individual, the whole point of pseudo-random number generators is what you hope is for every time you ask for one, you get one that is unpredictably different than the previous one. Obviously not unpredictable because it's a deterministic algorithm, but like from an outside observer, if you don't know what the seed was, you won't know what the next number is going to be. So again, it should be exactly equally random to no matter what the seed is, no matter what random number generator you have, as long as they both have the same amount of entropy or whatever. This is a very complicated mathematical topic that I don't know the details of, but the whole point is one set of randomness is not necessarily any more or less random than the other. It's a thing that you can choose when you make the algorithms. And Anthropic is saying it's random, just like it was before, but the random number generator is one that we control in a way that we can predict, but it's still random. It's just as random as any. It's just as random as Marco's random number, random order of his notifications. It's random enough that a user considers it random, but behind the scenes, it's not random at all. It's entirely determined by the seed.
And fun fact, that's why you can copy someone's Minecraft world by just copying the seed. That's literally like the Minecraft seed for the Minecraft world. That's what that is. It is a random number that serves as the seed to the random number generator that generates the entire world. And so that's why two different computers you can just type in this number, and you will generate exactly the same world that my computer with the same version of the game generated, because that's literally what it's doing.
Yeah, because it's like there is a sequence of code in the game that's going to run, and at various points that code is going to say, give me the next random number. And as long as the seed is the same as someone else's seed, and as long as the code is the same as theirs, it's going to get the same answers as you got. Like that's the seed of a pseudo-random number generator determines every number that will come before it, come after it exactly. The whole trick is, choosing a seed that's not going to repeat and that people don't know. And that's another upsetting thing about computers. People just assume computers can easily pick a random number. It goes really deep. Like there's a reason computers have like quote unquote real random number generators for use like cryptography and stuff, because it would be terrible to use a pseudo random number generator for cryptography because people could predict what it's going to be. And how do the real random number generators work? Usually there's some piece of analog hardware that samples like electrical line noise from interference from surrounding components in the air. Like you need basically a source of entropy. And sometimes these devices that will get you sources of entropy can't give you an unlimited amount instantly. So you have to wait for them to gather enough entropy. It's a very complicated topic, but suffice it to say that the random number generation used for LLMs has to be fast, and it's not like cryptographically secure. They just want like roll a dice, pick a random number, like the same way you would get it from any kind of pseudo-random number. That's perfectly sufficient for all LLMs. That's why I think the one that they're swapping in is probably also not expensive, doesn't use like real world entropy, because the job it has to do is, there's 5 possible word choices, and pick what they are. And before we get to Gruber's thing on this, this will be in a bunch of links in the show notes, the stuff we linked before, but I'll give timestamp links to the specific parts of this. And in particular, the 3 blue, 1 brown video on how LLMs work, which isn't that scary. And if you watch it maybe 7 times, you'll start to get it. It's a bunch of matrix math. And in the end, you end up like, it's like, what is the next word supposed to be? At the end, you end up with like, here are the top 10 words. And they're like probabilities. Like we think this is the most likely, second most likely, third most likely, fourth most likely, right? So on and so forth. That's how LLMs work. And there's a setting called temperature, which says, when I get to that end part and you give me a probability distribution about the likeliness, like this is 90% likely, this is 40% likely, this is 30% likely, they don't add up to 100. It's just like, how likely is each one of them? A temperature of 0 just always picks the most likely one. Sort them by likeliness. The one that's at the top, you get. Okay, and if there's a tie, I don't know, they just pick randomly or whatever between those two. But like Temperature of 0 picks the most likely. And you think that's great. That's what LLM should do. That'll be the smartest because it finds the best word and picks it. But temperature 0 is not pleasing to use because for a variety of reasons, if you're conversing with an LLM or having it do anything like interesting, a temperature of 0, and this is me talking, not any sort of, AI scientist. My impression is that it reveals too much about the stupidity and determinism of the machine. So if you say at each sequence, just pick the most likely next word, it's just terrible. It doesn't seem like it's alive or creative or interesting. And by the way, if you ask the same question with the exact same wording, it will always give you the same answer, kind of like a pseudo-random number generator, right? So picking the most likely next word choice turns out not to be the best strategy for a thing that's going to fake people out into thinking like it's alive and creative and stuff. So it's good for, like, we talked about this in the past, like business processes where you need something to be predictable. Like if there's some business processes that's classifying something, like what category should this invoice go into? You put temperature 0 on that one because you don't want creativity. Just pick the most likely next word or the most likely next token or whatever. Like just do it the same every time. If you get the same input, I want the same output, temperature 0. But chatbots, no, temperature 0 is not what they use. When you increase the temperature to be non-zero, what it does is it takes that probability distribution where it's like, well, this one is really the most likely at like 90% likely, and the next one is 80, and then 70, and then 60, and then tails off. And it squishes the probability curve down to say, let's not have too many spikes here. Let's make the less likely ones have a higher probability. So instead of it being like, let's say it was like 90, 20, 10, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1. Let's squish that down so it's like 60, 40, 20, like it's basically taking some of the distribution from the big bars and spreading it to the smaller bars. And then it picks randomly amongst them, weighted based on their probability, right? So, it's like you roll a dice and it uses the size of the bar to say basically how many entries in the raffle does each word get. And so the most likely one is still the most likely to get picked, but you're giving more of a chance in the raffle to the lesser words. And the higher you make that temperature, the more it squishes those bars down to the point where if you have a really high temperature, you may end up with a distribution like the screenshot that I pulled from the 3 blue, 1 brown video, where it's like the top 3 entries are 6%, then there's 5%, and then 4%. So there's lots of things that are tied, and it's really squished it out. So now, the top ones get 6 entries in the raffle, then the next 4 of them get 5 entries, and then a bunch of other ones get 4 entries in the raffle. The odds are pretty good for any of those words is going to come up. If you put the temperature too high, you start getting wackadoo responses, right? So somewhere between temperature 0, which is it just does the same thing every single time, picks the most likely, and a high temperature of 5. Somewhere in the middle there is the pleasing temperature where there's just enough randomness that it makes it interesting and fools you into thinking it's like a little elf in there talking to you, but not so high that the elf is on LSD.
Nice.
Right? And that's how these things work that we're all talking with. And so into this comes the watermarking discussion and Gruber's initial take on it, which lots of people had objections to.
Right. So it's worth reading this post in full, but John has selected this particular quote. John Gruber writes, I want any LLM I use to choose the very best, most precise words at every single decision point. The idea that anything other than my needs should factor into the generation of text for me is patently offensive. The best writing I see come out of these models is worse than anything I would choose to read for pleasure. And now Anthropic is saying they're going to make it worse on purpose for purposes that do not benefit me in any way, even if only slightly worse. Get f***ed.
So, based on what we just read about temperature and everything, if you read that sentence by Gruber, which so many people on the internet did, and says, I wanted to choose the very best, most precise word at every single decision point, that would be temperature 0, and it sucks. That's, the only thing they have to determine best is probability. And if it picks the most probable next word at every turn, it will sound dumb and terrible and bad and will not be pleasing to use as a chatbot or as a tool for doing things. That's temperature 0. So already, before watermarking, it's not only is it not picking the very best, most precise words, you don't want it to. Now, he's just expressing his desire. I would wish these things would pick the most precise word. And he was saying that by watermarking, now you're making your decision based on something other than what's the best. Well, they're obviously always making the decision based on something other than what's the best. And that something else is randomness. Like, that's their strategy. There's no other, but like, what if it's better in a different way? Nope. They're numbers. And you have probabilities, and your choices are pick the best one every time, or do like a whatever, like spread the probabilities around, and so the lesser ones have a higher chance, and then pick randomly, because that's how these things work. And everyone just replied to him and said, hey, dummy, don't you know about temperature? Of course, he did know about temperature and wrote a big rebuttal. But before he got to that, people who replied to Gruber will link to Dan Morin's post, where he has a more philosophical angle on this that Gruber did respond to. And Daniel Jalkut had a good point that I think he made in his post about this, which is basically like, look, if it's random in both cases, and if you're afraid that's going to change the quality, it's just as likely to make the quality better as it is to make it worse, because it's random. You know what I mean? And any given word choice, if the randomness is truly random and you're just picking a different source of randomness, it may make it worse, but it also may make it better, hopefully in equal percentage. And so we'll average out to being the same. And that makes Anthropic's claim that it will not change the quality of the output very compelling. Now, Anthropic didn't do itself any favors by saying, oh, we tested it on users and they couldn't tell a difference. That doesn't mean anything. As Gruber points out, like users can't tell anything, right? But mathematically speaking, it makes sense to me that it's entirely mathematically plausible that watermarking would not change the quality in any way whatsoever, because random is random is random. The temperature will certainly change the quality, but that's not what this is changing. This is just changing the source of the random number generation.
So Gruber's reply, again, Syracuse pulled a little bit for me to read. The temperature-based randomness, which is what makes LLM output non-deterministic, is in place to help make the output better. The pros is clearly better with a temperature of 1 with weighted randomness than at temperature 0 with no randomness. The watermarking schemes, on the other hand, are applying predictable with the secret key randomness for an entirely different purpose than improving the quality of the output, and thus, I believe, inherently make the output at least slightly worse.
Now, I'll pause you there. This is also some, he kind of walks it back in the next paragraph you're going to read, but there is a little bit of logical leaping here that is divorced from reality, because, with the, it makes the output non-deterministic. Well, as we just discussed, pseudo-random number generators are absolutely deterministic. That's a feature of them. Temperature-based randomness does not make LLMs non-deterministic. It just makes them random seeming to humans who don't know the seed or the functionality of the random number generator. But it's deterministic code executed by a computer. It is absolutely deterministic. And then he's saying, well, watermarking schemes, on the other hand, are applying predictable with secret key randomness. That's what the other randomness is too. It's predictable with secret key. Like, they're both, the randomness is coming from they're both deterministic. They just seem random. It's a pseudo-random number generation. Again, nothing that Anthropic has said they're, sampling like weather vanes or something or to get like true entropy and randomness. And even if they were, that's just improving the quality of the randomness. Presumably a good pseudo-random number generator spreads its randomness evenly. Like, there are better or worse ones or whatever, but I would imagine they're highly motivated to use ones that are efficient to run, because they make these random decisions a lot in the data center. So you probably don't want a really expensive random number generation. So anyway, I'll let you continue with the next part, but I just want to say that Gruber is like assigning qualities to these two things and characterizing one as non-deterministic and randomness, the other one as deterministic. And I think that is a logical error. They are both predictable with secret key randomness.
Gruber continues, advocates of LLM watermarking schemes for text argue that the schemes don't necessarily lower the quality of the generated prose because they don't change the temperatures. They only change the source of the randomness. Daniel Jalkut wrote a good piece today about this. I hope that's true. I believe it's possible that it is true. I think it's highly unlikely that it is true. I do not see how a detectable signal can be encoded into the choice of words without affecting the meaning of the prose.
Yeah, so he says, I hope it's true. I believe it's possible it's true, but he thinks it's unlikely. Now, here's what I think Gruber's problem is. Psychoanalyzing this. The motivations is the problem. Like, that's his main objection. The motivation of the watermarking feature is not to make the output better. That's 100% true. That's not the motivation. The motivation has nothing to do with making the output better, and I don't think it will make the output better. But I also don't think it will make it worse. And so his main objection is, don't put time, effort, and money into doing a thing that you know is not there to make things better. It's kind of like App Store search. Like, it's not there to make things better for the user, right? And App Store search actually has a bad effect. But anyway, in this case, the motivation is not aligned with what John Gruber wants from an LLM. And I agree with that 100%. But I also think that it is entirely plausible that the watermarking scheme does not, in fact, change the quality in any way. It doesn't make it better and doesn't make it worse, because all it's doing is picking a different pseudo-random number generator. Now, it's possible that the one they pick for the watermarking has worse randomness than the one they were using before, but I don't know enough of the details about that to know, and I don't think Gruber does either. Again, I think both of them are probably equally efficient and equally random, and I'm not sure how random that is. But they're both predictable with secret key randomness, and their job is the same, which is after the temperature squishes down the probability curves, pick one of them based on based on how many entries they get in the raffle, based on their probability amount that they get after the squishing. That's it. That's the job, and they're going to make different choices because you'll make different. That's the sort of predictable with secret key. Depending on when you time your query, assuming time is in any way part of the seed, that's going to change which things you get too. If you hit return 1 microsecond later, you might get a different response because the pseudo-random number generator incorporates the time that it gets your response. If your thing gets hung up on a router somewhere and arrives a few milliseconds later or earlier at the data center, that will also change your answer. That is all deterministic, predictable randomness. It's just that the factors that go into it, we don't know. And so it seems random to us. And that is entirely sufficient for randomness.
All right. Thanks to our sponsor of this episode, Tailscale. And thanks to our members who support us directly. You can join us at atp.fm/join. One of the many perks of ATP membership is Overtime, our weekly bonus topic. This week on Overtime, we're going to be talking about other people's phones based on aforementioned friend Stephen Robles' video about his son's iPhone. That'll be a fun discussion. And Overtime, you can join to listen to atp.fm/join. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week.
Now the show is over. They didn't even mean to begin, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. John didn't do any research. Marco and Casey wouldn't let him, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. And you can find the show notes at atp.fm. And if you're into Mastodon, you can follow them at CASEYLISS. So that's Casey Liss, MARCOARMENT, Marco Arment, SIRAC, USA Syracuse. It's accidental. They didn't mean to. Accidental. Tech podcast so long.
So I had a long day on Friday. I drove from Richmond to Charlotte, North Carolina, which is about 5 hours. And I sold a car, bought a car, and then drove 5 hours back home.
Congratulations.
I was very tired, but very, very happy.
Did you sell the car you drove there in?
Yes. And that is itself a whole long story. I will try to give the short version of this. By the way, for people who don't measure in time, it's about a 300-mile journey, which I don't know what that is in real units, so I apologize, but you can look it up for yourself. So yeah, what I did was I woke up, drove the Golf R down to Charlotte. It had been appraised online via CarMax, where I basically just gave them the VIN and said, it's in good shape. I haven't done anything to it, blah, 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 blah. And I got a estimate from CarMax, or an appraisal from CarMax. And I thought, okay, that's all well and good, but there's like a couple of blemishes on the car, and they're not tremendous, but there's enough that I think if somebody sees this, they might be like, oh, well, we got to fix this and that, and it's not worth what we said it was. So then I
definitely
took it
with
in.
That voice too.
In exactly that voice. So I took it in. This is like, I don't know, Wednesday or Thursday of last week. I forget exactly when it was, but I took it in, got an in-person appraisal, which was very quick and easy. Now, to be fair, CarMax is based in Richmond. As I've said on the show in the past, was actually a spinoff of Circuit City, if you've ever heard that name before. But anyways, I went to one of the local stores, had them appraise it, came up with the exact same number. But interestingly, they said that they would have honored either number, and I should just choose whichever one is bigger, which was fascinating. I don't think it's, maybe this is an American thing. I don't think it's a very appropriate thing to talk about money, generally speaking, but I am so astonished with the number that CarMax offered that I'm going to share it with you because I'm so proud of it. We bought the Golf R on August 30th of 2018. I remember because it was the day before Aaron's birthday. We bought that car for a little shy of $40,000 all in. In August of 2026, 8 years later, CarMax offered me $28,600 for that car. That is
That's awesome.
an astonishingly small amount of depreciation. I am flabbergasted that that's what they offered me.
And out of curiosity, how does that compare to like the Blue Book values for like?
You know what? I
check
honestly,
them?
I didn't look because I knew that I was going to sell it to CarMax or
Yeah.
Carvana, who offered like 24 or thereabouts. I forget exactly what it was offhand, but. And I find it gives me the heebie-jeebies to talk about money like this as an American, but that's so cool that we got that much money for that car that I'm very proud of that.
Well, you got to look in the Blue Book value for the line item that says a little old Casey just drove it to church every Sunday.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because that's basically your car. It is a low mileage garage queen.
Yeah, and it gets very aggressively cleaned all the time. No, I remember like when I sold the Tesla, I went to CarMax and I kind of had like they gave me like an estimate and I was like, that sounds too good to be true. And I remember like I drove there thinking like I would take anything over X, and they came in so far above what I hoped they would pay.
Yeah,
I was shocked, and it was way more than it would have been easy for me to do otherwise. So I can definitely. Not a sponsorship. I could definitely say I had a very good experience selling to CarMax.
Yeah, I mean, it's worked out really well for us. One slightly difficult thing about this, however, is that the car, we had the title in hand 8 years later, and the car was titled in both our names, which is all well and good, but I'm going to be selling it in a different state without Aaron next to me. So what the hell do I do there? And we redid our wills a couple of years ago and have durable power of attorney for each other. And in theory, the way this works in America anyway, is that I can sign as though I'm Aaron and vice versa. And that is as though she's there. That's what a durable power of attorney is. But that doesn't mean that CarMax has to honor that. It doesn't mean that CarMax in Charlotte, North Carolina has to honor that. So me being me, I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll just fly down and I'll deal with the Volkswagen later. But that was a $500 plane ticket. Now, on the plus side, it was a direct flight, which is one of the 6 places you can get direct from Richmond. But I'm too cheap to spend the $500 to fly down there. So I didn't want to do that. I looked at renting a car, but it was like $100, which is within reason. But then I'm in a box for 5 hours, and I want nothing to do with that either. So on Thursday, I called up CarMax down there. Well, I think I went to CarMax either Thursday morning or whatever day it was, sometime, and I talked to the local ones, and they were like, "It should be fine." Shrug, which was not reassuring because I didn't want to be in a situation where I'm 5 hours from home and suddenly own 2 cars and only have one person to drive them. So I finally was able to find a number for the CarMax in Charlotte, which was a challenge in and of itself. I freaking hate the phone, but this is one of those times I needed a phone number, and anyone I found was like the corporate trunk line, but I eventually found it, called them. An incredibly nice person got me on the phone. I got this incredibly nice person on the phone who talked about it and was like, "Hey, why don't you send me an electronic copy of it so I can see it to make sure it looks good, blah, blah, blah." And she said, "You know what? You should be fine." And so I set off at about 7:30 in the morning, drove my 5 hours, got to the BMW dealer. I bought a certified pre-owned BMW i4 M50. This is exactly what I've been flirting with for 6 months now or something like that. Yeah, about 6 months.
And is it white?
It is not white. It is San Remo green. I did not set out for green, but the more I see this car, the more I love this green. I think it's beautiful.
I thought it was black. Did you pick the color, or was it just like, this is the color it's available in and I don't mind it?
The latter. I mean, I wouldn't, there was no exterior color that I can think of that I would have said no to. There was an interior color, the red, that it seems that everyone optioned on this car for I don't know what reason. I did not want a red interior car. I would have held my nose if I needed to, but I did not want one. This one has a black interior, and it's this deep forest green on the outside, which I absolutely love. I'm extremely, extremely happy with it. So I get down to BMW. We take it for a quick, shakedown ride. All looks good. We do the stuff with BMW, and that was mostly easy. And then I go across the street to CarMax, and I sell the Volkswagen to them. And I ended up working with the exact same woman I was speaking with the day before, who again was amazing. I was the biggest worrywart in the world. I'm sure you find this surprising. I was so nervous about everything, and she was so calm and so chill, and exactly the person I needed to work with in order to survive. Basically,
did you pack 40 bottles of water for the trip?
No,
maybe a watermelon.
No, I didn't. I didn't need any of that. But no, I had like a small little cooler, like lunch bag that had a couple of drinks in it. I did.
Was it your tailgating cooler?
No, nowhere near that big. This was like a lunchbox.
They don't have lunch in Charlotte.
You need his travel router.
The thought was no travel router.
Apple
the thought
TV.
was that the thought was that I didn't want to spend that much time because it's a long day, right? It's 5 hours down there, anywhere between 1 and 5 hours worth of financial transactions, and 5 hours back, including a charging stop, which we'll get to.
Did you do the selling of the Golf before you picked up the BMW or after?
What do you think was the correct answer to this question? Because I had an intention and then I reversed my intention on my way there.
I mean, the tricky part is once you sell the Golf, how do you get to the BMW dealership if you do the Golf first? But then on the other hand, you have the exact same other problem. How do you drive 2 cars to go sell the Golf?
Well, and I would worry, like, what if you whatever you do first, then the second thing falls through.
Exactly. So you sell your Golf and then you can't pick up the BMW. Now you're stuck with no car.
Right. So
or you're stuck with 2 cars.
So on the way there, I had intended to do the shakedown ride first, just to make sure that whatever it is I'm about to buy is okay. Then drive to CarMax. Now, these 2 stores were like a mile apart. Now, as it turns out, they were on this gigantic road in Charlotte. I had envisioned like a regularly a one lane each direction kind of street. I didn't get to the point of like looking at it on Google Maps satellite or Apple Maps satellite view or anything. This is like a 4 or 5 lane road each direction. Not the sort
That's
of thing.
That's where car dealerships live. That's their natural habitat.
I know. I should have known. This is a failure of my own.
A gigantic strode.
Yep. No, that's exactly what it was. So I'd intended to do the check ride, sell the car, have them like pick me up or something, or Uber if I had to. Well, I'd originally thought I would just walk it, but then I quickly realized that was a terrible decision. Then either have them pick me up or Uber back to the BMW dealer. At that point, I'll sign on the BMW and drive away. On the way there, my car nerd group chat, which I've brought up many times in the past, one of whom is a former lawyer, said to me, "You're probably going to want to sign on the BMW first because." Even though the salesperson I worked with was amazing and I really enjoyed him, first of all, his job is to make me say that and feel that way and basically gaslight me. That's the whole point of a car salesman. But secondly, if I sell the Volkswagen, now I'm screwed. And if the terms change on the BMW, I am way more likely to be like, well, I guess that's the deal now. And so my friend Brian had strongly suggested, and I eventually acquiesced, and I think it was the right answer, that I buy the car first, then run over to CarMax, and then they were kind enough to just send a person over to pick me up. That's what I ended up doing. It was very sad to get rid of the Volkswagen. It was an incredible car. It had something like 35,000 miles on it in 8 years, which in America, you average, most people are considered 10 to 12,000 miles a year to be average. So this car should have had like nearly 100,000 miles by time. If you think about it, it had 30,000 miles. So as you said, in great shape. And even though it is old in a time way, it is very, very young in a mileage way. So all the financial transactions went well, no major issues. And I get on the road and I'm heading back to Richmond and oh my God, this car is so nice. It's so nice.
That's
It is a
awesome.
2024, 20,000 miles. I think I already said that, but 20,000 miles on, or a little bit more than 20,000 miles on it. It is so nice. It has the 3 packages I wanted. It has the driver assistance plus package, I think it's called. I forget the exact term for it. It has the parking and it has premium package. So it has their equivalent of full self-driving. It's a little squishy. It's not really what it is, but
Yeah.
it has as close as BMW gets to full self-driving anyway. It has a Qi charger in the center console. It has like this wraparound, well, maybe that's a bit dramatic, but like this curved infotainment display that mates into the gauge cluster, which I could see someone, particularly John, saying that's hideous, and I wouldn't necessarily argue with you, but I think it looks good. It's just such a nice car. And in so many ways, I quickly realized that I'm kind of welcoming myself to 2017. And I say 2017 specifically because Aaron's former Volvo that got destroyed by Pebble was a 2017 model year. And that had amazing technology like a sunroof, which my Volkswagen Golf R, the Mark 7.5, never offered. You can precondition the car. So even her car, which was fully gasoline, the first one was fully gasoline, you could get on the app and run the engine, which we didn't do that often, but you could do to get the car cooled or warm as you're waiting, as you're leaving wherever you are on your way out to the parking lot. That is, on a really bad summer day in Richmond, let me tell you, that is clutch. So that's really cool. And then with her new car, and with mine, obviously, you're not running gasoline. You're doing that with electricity, which is even better. And you're never going to be able to precondition a 6-speed car because that would require the engine starting. And if you start the engine with it in gear, which is how you should park a 6-speed or 3-pedal car, I should say, then you will drive it away. Like if the car is in gear and the motor is turning, it is driving. So that would never work with any of my cars. And now I can do it. It has a heated steering wheel, again, as did Aaron's 2017. It has rear climate control for the kids, which is exciting. So in so many ways, I've joined the land of 2017 with my 2024 BMW. But these are all, as much as I'm snarking, these are all niceties that I haven't had. And oh my God, it's so great.
Yeah, those are awesome.
Yeah. And so I'm driving home. The car is so solid. I feel like the Volkswagen, especially when new, was similarly solid, but it's been 8 years. And so, things get a little loose is dramatic, but for lack of a better word, things get loose. And this thing is so solid. I don't know if I mentioned, I think I said it's certified pre-owned, which means, BMW has gone through it, made sure it looks okay. I get an extra year of warranty, which is really nice because my former BMW experience, let me tell you, not great. So, driving home, I'm going to tell you things, particularly Marco, that you have known for 10 years now. But what's incredible, one of the very incredible things about driving an electric car, not only is it incredibly comfortable, not only is it incredibly quiet, astonishingly quiet, but if you happen to see a gap on the interstate that maybe is not directly adjacent to you, but is within reach of you, especially if you're in a performance electric car, that gap is yours by the time you decide you want it to be yours. Now, admittedly, I'm now describing driving like a BMW driver, or alternatively, driving like an Apple, which, fair, the shoe fits. But it is so intoxicating that you can see a gap, 50 yards or 50 meters ahead, if you will, and you can be there instantly. It's unbelievable how fast this car is. And I know all electric cars are very, very fast. I would assume that what is iX3, right? Do I have that right? Your car now?
I have the iX.
Oh, it's just iX. I had a feeling that was wrong. Okay. I would assume your iX is nearly as quick, and for all intents and purposes is as quick, even though it isn't literally, for all intents and purposes, it is as quick, but oh my God, it's so amazing. And one of the things I feared most, and John, you're going to beat me up for this because I would if I were in your shoes. One of the things I feared the most about adjusting to this car was missing the 6-speed, was having my left leg get bored. Admittedly, I'm in the honeymoon period, but I am so enamored by having instant unlimited power, or at least unlimited at the speeds in which I drive. I don't think I miss it.
I really told you
I know you did. And if I were hearing these words from John, I would be ripping John a new one right now. So John, feel free to beat me up. It's deserved.
I believe that you don't miss it. I think I will miss it, but I think I'll also appreciate the better things. So, time moves on. But I don't know when I'm getting an electric car anytime soon. But yeah, it's like kind of the way you miss things like from your nostalgic youth or whatever. And it's like, well, I wouldn't want to have it again because in many ways it was, old and bad, but I have fond memories of it. And I feel like that's what stick shift driving is going to be to you.
The whole appeal, for me, the appeal of a stick shift was always better control over what the engine is doing and how it's delivering its power. And with an electric car, especially a single gear, not the stupid Taycan, you don't need that type of control because you inherently have more direct control with your regular gas foot. You don't need a whole second mechanism to control this very kind of peaky power delivery pattern that it has. You're just controlling something direct, so the entire problem that you needed better control over doesn't actually exist anymore.
Yep, that's exactly it. And so much is different about this car that I feel like it's different enough that I don't think I'd miss it. If I were to jump into a Golf R, even a modern Mark 8 Golf R that has the dual clutch transmission, I think I'd be like, this is trash. And I think it's because it's still an internal combustion engine. It's still shifting gears. And I want to have that control, damn it. I want to have that control. In an electric car, it's such a different beast. And the instant power, as a pure-blooded American who loves a muscle car, that instant power, Oh, gentlemen, it's so intoxicating. It's so intoxicating. So I'm driving home, and immediately, I never thought of my Golf R, which again was a 2017 model year. I never thought of the Golf R. Was it 20? No, it was 2018. I'm sorry, 2018. I never thought of the Golf R as feeling old. It had CarPlay. It had the display screen for the gauge cluster rather than having like physical gauges. It was early on in that trend. That had been a thing for a while, but it was one of the first Volkswagens to do it. So it didn't like reek of being old, if that makes sense. But oh my God, to be in this new car where everything is new and shiny and like the screens are very, very big air quotes here. The screens are retina by comparison to the ones in the Volkswagen. Not literally. I'm just you get what I'm trying to say here. The screens are so much better. The processor in the car, whatever processors are doing, whatever animations it's doing are so much nicer. So much of this is so great. So I'm on the road on the way home, and I have the fancy schmancy automated driving, and I hit a little bit of traffic. And do you know what the car does when I come up to traffic? It stops itself. And do you know what it does when the traffic keeps moving? The car starts moving. This is technology that most of the world has had for a long time. This is amazing. It's so nice. And I'm probably not going to be on the highway that often with this thing. I mean, I was rarely on the highway with the Volkswagen, but it's so nice. And so I found that on the way to Charlotte, I was locked in. I was wired in because I had visions of like some pebble or something jumping out at me and like cracking the windshield or leaving a dent or something like that. I don't know that I have ever driven as defensively in my life, with the exception of the time that my children came home from the hospital. Every other time I think I've gotten in the car, I've been less defensive than I was on this 5-hour drive to Charlotte. And let me tell you, 5 hours of white knuckling your way down southwest into almost South Carolina. That's how far away it is. I was tired by the time I got there. But on the way back, obviously I'm still paying attention. I'm not one of these dummies that believes full self-driving is literally full self-driving, but I'm still paying attention. My hands are still on the wheel, but I don't have to be quite so locked in and, oh my God, I can actually like breathe a little. It made the drive so much nicer. And as much as I snark on Tesla, my understanding, having not driven a Tesla in a few years now, is that they're self-driving, while not really full self-driving. My understanding is legitimately, all snark aside, that it is the best in the business. And so given how good BMW's is, I can only imagine how good Tesla's is. But at one point in this, what did I say, 300-ish mile journey, I needed to stop, and I almost said fuel. I needed to stop and charge, because the range in a perfect world, and the salesman, charged it to 100%. I didn't even have to ask him. But I still needed to charge at some point. And the range on this car in the summer is somewhere around 250, 275 miles. And again, this was a 300-mile journey. So I didn't know how I was going to handle that. My understanding from my friend Brad, who has an F-150 Lightning, is that the Tesla supercharger network is far and away the most reliable, the easiest to use, as long as you have an adapter to go from NACS to CCS. This car has CCS, which is what the rest of the world uses, but Tesla superchargers use Tesla standard. Now, Brad had been kind enough to loan me one of his NACS to CCS adapters, so I did have that in the car, but I don't love the idea of giving Elon any money whatsoever if I can avoid it, including the 10 or 20 or 30 bucks it would be to charge my car. So I worked with a better route planner, which is the standard issue. This is what you should use in order to plan your route if you're in an EV. And so I use a better route planner to figure out where I should charge. And toward the top of North Carolina, there was, guess what, Marco, but a Rivian what is it? Not Action Network.
Adventure Network.
Yep. A Rivian Adventure Network charging station. And I pulled up to that, backed my butt in using my fancy 3D overhead camera. Thank you very much.
Yep.
And I backed in. All I did was bloop, bloop. And then I plugged in. And then I walked to the other end of the parking lot to Wendy's to get myself a junior bacon cheeseburger, which I love. I know it's trash. I don't care. I love it. It's delicious.
Wendy's is delicious.
Thank you.
I'm a Wendy's fan.
Thank you very much. So by the time I had received my biggie bag, this is the most American story I've ever told. But anyway, by the time I received my biggie bag with my junior bacon cheeseburger and spicy nugs and fries, I had enough in the car, enough charge in the car that I could have left right then and there. So what I ended up doing was I ate my nuggets because I, had a little dipping sauce with it. I ate the burger because I had a feeling I would dribble all over myself or the car. And then I took the fries in the bag because if I drop one, I can find it. And I got on my way. It was something to the effect of $20 at the Rivian Charger and about 20 minutes or thereabouts.
You're making your new car smell like fast food, though.
No, this is why you crack the sunroof that I mentioned I have.
That doesn't stop it from smelling.
Oh,
Maybe you
does.
like it smelling like fast food. I don't know.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But anyway, I've done this trick for years across several cars. As long as you constantly have constant ventilation from the outside world, not the HVAC, if you will, but the windows down or sunroof cracked, it's enough, I promise. Unless you have something extremely smelly.
Yeah, well, so the test would be you arrive home, you get out of the car, you remove all evidence that you had fast food. Then you tell your wife to get in the car and say, did I have fast food on this trip or not?
That's fair. She would not have noticed, not because of Aaron. I'm saying it was that not fragrant. But I totally hear what you're saying. I really do. But so anyway, so I did my charging stop. Again, I'm a worrywart. I was deeply stressed about that, but I knew that there was a Tesla supercharger a couple miles away. And when I got there, I think I had like 100 miles of range. It was one of those situations where it was just a convenient place to top up. I didn't absolutely need it at that very moment. So I think there's Electrify America nearby, which I've heard is trash, although getting better.
We're going to need to get you the charge limit on this thing so you don't keep it plugged in your house like a desktop laptop at 100% charge all the time. Well, leave it at 50%. Jeez.
Well, one of the first things I did was crank the charge limit to 80%.
Yeah,
and
80 is fine.
I've debated bringing it down more. I don't know what I'm going to do about that, but that is one of the first things I did. So I got my way home. I'm enamored by all the silly things about the car. As you walk up to it, it unlocks itself. You don't have to do anything. It just automatically unlocks itself. When you walk away, it locks itself again. You can use your phone as a car key to get into the car. And then if you place it onto the Qi charging pad, it can run the car. I'm a little nervous about that, and plus I'm still amused about the whole locking and unlocking itself thing when you have the physical key in your pocket. So I like to have this as a backup scenario, but I don't know that I would necessarily choose to run with just the phone as a key. I can use my watch as a key to get in and out, but it's kind of hard to hold my hand on the Qi charger when I'm trying to start the car. So I don't think I would do that, but at least I can get in and out of the car with my watch. There's so much about this car that I love so very much, and I think it's such a good fit for me. One of the things that I did do subsequent to having it for a day or two is I finally got the opportunity and understood how to use launch control. Now, I'd read instructions about how to do this, and they basically said just have it in Sport Plus, I think is what it's called. No, that sounds wrong. Sport Boost. There it is. Have it in Sport Boost. Mash down your left foot on the brake. Mash down your right foot on the gas, and it'll say launch control activated on the dashboard, and then just pop your foot off the brake and off you go. And I tried this once or twice, and I never saw the message. Like, I was on the brake and I didn't go anywhere, but I tried this dance and I never really saw it. And I watched either a YouTube video. I did eventually read the manual, which I said to Marco via text, I'm doing a spot of light reading, and that's all I said, to which Marco immediately replied,
oh, you want me to dig it up?
No, you said something along the lines of, you're reading the manual, aren't you? to which I then replied with a photograph of me reading the manual.
You're the only person who reads car manuals anymore.
Yep. You nailed it.
I read them too.
Thank you, John.
I read all the manuals to all my cars.
I read the manual. I looked at some YouTube videos, and it turns out I think what I was doing wrong was that you need to properly mash down your left foot on the brake. You can't just be on the brake enough to hold you. They want the car wants you to be mashing down on the brake. And then you mash down the gas and you I almost said pop the clutch, you pop the brake. Oh my God. This car is so fast. It also does some really silly things that I think I'm supposed to hate as a self-respecting car guy, but I actually love because I'm a child. When you do launch control, it kind of squats a little bit or shakes a little bit to mimic kind of what it would feel like to have an actual motor going.
Yeah. I was gonna say, isn't it brake by wire?
I honestly don't. I understand the question. I don't know the answer.
When you're mashing the brake pedal, it's not like you're pressing the brakes any harder because you're not actuating the brakes.
I understand what you're saying. I just don't know the answer. You're probably right, to be honest with you. But yeah, so it kind of squats a little bit, does a little bit also, it makes these noises when you're in sport mode in particular. Any BMW i4 driver will tell you, well, Hans Zimmer composed the in-car noises, which is true.
I did enjoy those noises in my car for about the first 3 or 4 months, and I turned them off.
Okay, well, there you go. I think I'm supposed to be like, oh, this is dumb. I know, self-respecting car guy would want a fake, internal combustion engine, which it doesn't sound exactly like a motor, but it's inspired by a motor. Man, I freaking love it right now.
Yeah,
At least right now, I love it.
Like the Hans Zimmer soundtrack is very good.
It's really, really good. But launch control, I have never, I cannot recall a time, and I've been in fast Teslas, but to be fair, it's been a long time. I cannot recall a time, even in the Rivian, like launch edition, the quad motor Rivians, those were astonishingly fast when you consider the fact that they weigh 90 billion pounds.
Mm-hmm.
This car also weighs like 6,000 pounds or something like that. But the thing with the launch control in the i4 M50 is that I cannot think of a closer or a more analogous experience to one of the linear induction motor roller coasters where they launch you. You know what I'm talking about? That is what this feels like. It is astonishing how quickly this thing will get up the road. I want to do it every time I leave a stoplight, and I'm mostly resisting right now because I'm not that much of a jerk, but I'm only barely able to resist. It is incredible. I don't even know how to describe it. Marco is going to be in town in the future, and I cannot wait for you to, at the very least, experience it as a passenger. If not, take it for a spin and do it yourself. This is incredible. And I everything about this car, I love it so much. I love it so much. I'm so very happy that this is the decision I made. I had kicked around the idea of leasing a new one because you could make an argument that there are financial reasons why that would be better. But honestly, this car, I paid like 60% or thereabouts of the original purchase price. Like, that is a really good deal for a 2-year-old car that's CPO'd. I'm very happy with it. The only problem I have with it right now anyway, is that BMW killed Home Assistant integration like 3 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
And as far as I know, there's no way to get, at least in America, there are ways overseas, but at least in America, there's no way I'm aware of to feed data into Home Assistant from the car. And that kind of sucks, because it would be nice to, know what the state of charge, or to be, especially if I could write things to the car to tell the car, oh, I would like you to start preconditioning yourself or whatever. And that kind of bums me out. And the BMW app is good, and it has really good widget support. And, I forgot to mention, I have finally, for the first time since the little widgets on the bottom of your lock screen have been a thing, for the very first time, I've changed from the camera widget on the bottom right, or control center widget, or whatever we're going to call it, to something else. Now there's a little fan down there. So from my lock screen, I can precondition the car. It's incredible. I'm so happy. It's awesome. So silly, but I'm so happy. But all in all, like, the app is a little wonky. I think I prefer the Volvo app in the grand scheme of things. The BMW app has definitely got more knobs and things to fiddle with, but I think the Volvo app, not only is it design-wise better, but I think information architecture is a little better. But I thought, if you'll permit me, if we can give me just a couple of more minutes, I thought we could do something together. And maybe, John, if you wouldn't mind, you can take the lead on this. There's a gentleman I know who wrote a post on his blog in May of 2026 called the EV Stupidity Checklist. And I thought maybe, John, you could be the MC as we go through this list for the BMW i4.
Oh, geez. I hadn't actually thought about this. I mean, I know you're getting this car no matter what, but...
That is very true.
All right. So let's start with the first one, because I did see the picture of this car and I almost commented on it. Accessible exterior door handles.
Correct. Check.
Is it obvious and immediately usable? Do you have to wait for something to happen, or can you just grab the handle?
You can just grab the handle. Now, I will say that the last several cars I have had, and forgive me, I don't know the terminology for this, but the handles were ones that they protrude from the car, and you can grab them and pull toward you, and that's what engages the latch or disengages the latch, whatever, to open the car. That's the way the Volvo still is. That's the way the Volkswagen was, the BMW that preceded it. Several cars in a row have been this way. The current BMW, the i4, has the old school, like you stick your fingers behind a little lever and pull towards you and up. That is the world's worst description, but it's like the prototypical old style lift up on the handle kind of door handle. If you saw a picture, it would be abundantly obvious. I'm painting a terrible word picture right now, but it is a legit, regular, familiar door handle. And on the interior, there's a very traditional mechanical door handle as well.
Yeah, that's actually, like, when I was trying to figure out, like, do I want to find myself an i4 or wait for the upcoming i3, one of the things in favor of just get the i4 is it's, it's possibly the last BMW EV to have regular door handles and a sunroof, by the way. And I think those are both going to be not really available for future EVs.
So the next item is, I think you might have touched on it, but is that thing that you pull, is it a physical door opening mechanism or is it electronically actuating a switch?
Nope, physical.
Interior and exterior, both.
That is correct.
Physical?
Mm-hmm.
All right. We already talked about affordances. Yes, you have exterior affordances. You definitely know where you have to put your hand and grab. Interior, same deal. Is there something you definitely know that you have to grab?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Physical charge port door mechanism. How does the charge port door open?
So one of the disadvantages of the i4, which I think we talked about a few episodes ago, one of the disadvantages of the i4 is that it's based on the 4 Series gasoline car. So a lot of the like EV purists note that it has the tunnel for the drive shaft from the front to the back of the car. It has that tunnel in the rear seat. So you see this bulge, or there is a bulge in the center part of the floorboard in the rear for a drive shaft that does not exist. And that's kind of silly and annoying. But the advantage is that it's also designed to be filled with gasoline with a door in the back of the car. And that door in the gasoline model is mechanical. In the electric model is mechanical. So it is a physical charge port door mechanism. You open it by pushing in, and then it becomes a jar, and then you pull it open.
Do you guys remember the 70s when they had key locks on the gas caps? Was that
Sure
before your time?
No, I mean, it was before our time, but we saw it.
Yeah. There were a lot of cars that still had those that were, still in service during our youth.
Exactly right.
Kids, ask your parents. Turn signal stalk. It's got one of those, right?
Yep, sure does.
And again, you would think this wouldn't need to be on the list, but trust me.
It does need to be on the list.
It does, yep.
Physical buttons on the steering wheel.
Yes, sir. Volume, going to increase your speed or decrease your speed. There's a kind of an up-down, like on each side of the wheel, there's like an up-down, like scroll wheel sort of situation. But there are physical buttons. There are abundant physical buttons on the steering wheel. There are not as many as I would like in the center console area, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah. For the steering wheel, are you giving yourself partial credit because there's one of those things where it's like 5 buttons and you press down a single piece of plastic and it knows which part of the 5 buttons?
No, that's fair. No, there are distinct physical buttons for like volume, for example, for the cruise control switches, etc.
Physical controls for temperature and fan speed.
All right, next. No? This is sad. This is sad. The temperature and fan stuff, that is all on the screen. Now, in fairness, like the Volvo, the temperature and seat heater controls are always, always, always visible, even if you're using CarPlay. But it is not physical, and I wish it was.
Yeah. Oh, see, the other thing that a lot of EVs fail on this is that those controls are not on the touchscreen. They are on separate controls that are like below the touchscreen, but they're still not physical controls. Like they put dedicated controls for them, but they're capacitive on like this little piece of plastic or glass or whatever. It's like, what are you doing? Like you were almost there. Just make it a button. Anyway, physical controls for airflow and direction. That basically means the places where the heated or cooled or otherwise air comes out of like the dashboard in the car. Can you change where it's blowing by moving a thing with your hand? Like the vent,
Absolutely can.
That's nice. Physical glove box opening mechanism. I just laugh every time I read these.
Yes, and I should note that the Volvo fails on this one, but yes.
Really, the Volvo doesn't have it? Just an electronic actuator thing?
Yes, it has a button that you use.
Does it make you use the touch screen?
No, it's not the touchscreen. It's a physical button near the glove box, but not on the glove box.
Yeah, electronic popper. Do you have a rear view mirror?
Yes, the rear visibility is not stellar because of the slope of the hatchback.
Yeah,
but it's still a rearview mirror, and I quickly got used to the rear visibility.
Does it have a thing where the mirror changes into a screen too?
No, not to my knowledge, anyway.
You complained about the Taycan as a rear visibility. I guess this is better than Taycan, though. Right?
It is night and day better than the Taycan, but it is not as good as I would have preferred. But again, I got used to it very quickly.
Do you have a rear window? Seems like yes, right?
Yes, I do.
Do you have side view mirrors?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, thanks to U.S. law, probably. But yeah, no, the i4 does pretty well. And so the disadvantage of not waiting for like these new class, fancy BMWs is, you don't get whatever the new things like yours. Your car isn't even 800 volt architecture, is it?
No.
Yeah, so it's old technology, but it's from this brief moment in time when they were putting physical controls in their EVs. Because like you said, it's based on the gas car. And so it's like, well, we're not going to redo every part of the interior for the EV. And the gas car had some physical controls. And, so you're benefiting from that. So you get a lot of advantages for having an older version of this. I believe most of the fancier new BMWs are going to do worse on this list than you did.
Yeah, I think that is very possible. I mean, there's going to be a lot of advantages for the Neue Klasse or Neue Klasse,
transmission tunnel.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I think overall, I think you're exactly right that in some ways, and again, the EV purists will yell at me, but in some ways, the fact that this is based off an internal combustion car is an advantage. And I think I said this last time, but like this thing does not have a frunk. It has a whole bunch of like machinery and whatnot in the engine bay, and I don't really care because I've never had a frunk. I don't know what I'm missing. And the back is, given the shape and size of the car, the back is gigantic. It's mammoth. In fact, I would argue there's way more storage in the back of this car than there was in the back of the Volkswagen because there was basically like plenty of vertical space, but very little depth. Also, there's one other thing I forgot to bring up, and I'm very mad at myself that I'm waiting until the end to say this. But this car has brought an entirely new thought technology to the List family because Aaron and I met in January of 2005. Since that time, for the last 21 and a half years, Aaron has never, ever, ever been able to drive the car that I own. Never. I've tried many times to teach her how to drive a stick, and we would do a lesson or two, and then life would get in the way, and she would never do it again. And so I think in a pinch, she's capable of it, but because she never does it, she has zero confidence, which if you squint means she can't do it after all.
Right.
She drove, we went and played pickleball with some friends Saturday, the day after the car came home. She drove us there in my car. That's something that we have not experienced in 21 years. And the fact that she can drive either car is incredible because now it doesn't matter. If I want to take the Volvo for some reason, I don't know why I would, but if I do, she's not stranded. It's incredible. Also, she's not making fun of me for driving a gas guzzler anymore because guess what? This bitch don't take gas. So no matter how you slice it, this is such an incredible improvement for the List family. I'm so incredibly happy and so very thankful that we were able to find a car that fit our needs. And no, it's great. I understand now why when I first started talking about this, so many ATP listeners were like, "Oh, I have an i4," and a large subset of them was not only I have an i4, but I have an i4 M50. And so many nerds seem to love this car, and I get exactly why. And I hate to say this again because I really wanted to be past BMW. But as I said about my test drive, and now that I own one, it's like coming home, boys. It's like coming home. Thank you for indulging me. I appreciate it.
I am so happy that, first of all, I'm happy that you have a car that you're really excited about. Because I know that matters a lot to you, and
Indeed,
you get a lot of joy out of that, and that's wonderful. You have worked for it, you've earned it, and you deserve it. Secondly, I love that you're in the EV world now.
Oh, I know.
I'm so happy with that.
You've been very gentle with me both tonight and in the past as we've had conversations in Slack or occasionally via text. You've been very gentle with me and have been very kind and left the I told you so's to a bare minimum, which I appreciate.
Thank you. Yeah. It's about time.
I know. But, it really is.
Yeah, but I'm very glad that you have arrived.
Yep, me too. And I mean, so far, it's nothing but upside. Like even the charging stop, as I said to you, I didn't know if it was going to take forever. I didn't know if it was going to be burdensome. It was not burdensome. And it took, the slowest part of the charging stop was me. I was the hold up with the charging stop. And I know that wouldn't be true always if I was going on a much longer trip, et cetera, et cetera. But so far, this is incredible, and I don't ever want to go back, which is exactly what every EV owner I've ever spoken to ever always says.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And look, EVs aren't for everyone, but they're for almost everyone. Like most people, like if you can, once you can afford one, like in your price range, and that's a big if, like that's a big thing that still keeps a lot of people out of them. But in terms of like, okay, if you can get past the price, then is the car and its features and everything, like, is that right for you? For most people, the answer is yes. Even if they don't necessarily think so themselves. For most people's needs are served very, very well by EVs.
I'm not sure if the show is over and this is just a bootleg, but speaking of price, by the way, because I know you get complaints about this, Casey. I will reiterate, the average selling price of a new car in the United States is $50,000. You paid less than that.
Correct.
Like people think, oh, I'm getting a BMW, it's expensive. You said it before, but just to reiterate in absolute values, this car is depreciated down to 60% of its original value, right? This is a car that is less expensive than the average new car. Now, granted, it's not a new car. It's like, oh, it's not fair. This is not a new car. But it's like, it's 20,000 miles and it's in good condition and it has a warrant, certified pre-owned warrant. Like, it's effectively a new car for less than, it's below, you bought a car for below average price. That's what it comes down to. And so I think this is one of the more financially responsible things you've ever done, automotively speaking, even though you were very impatient about it.
Yeah, well, yes and no. You're not wrong, but I've been thinking about this and kind of kicking tires since February. So it's been 6 months if you squint a little bit. But I do take it.
But once you got to be in your butt about this is the car that I want, it was like a week and you got it.
That is more true than I care to admit publicly.
But anyway, all I'm saying is this is a below average price car for a new car.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I think one of the things that kept me out of EVs for the longest time was because I would look at these prices and just figuratively vomit all over myself because it was just, oh my God, 80, 90, $100,000. Like the Porsches that I was looking at casually, very briefly, the sticker on those was like, 100, 110, 120, which obviously I was never buying a new one, but just an astonishing amount of money. And I think the sticker on this was somewhere around $75,000 or something like that. And again, like I had kicked around the idea of leasing one, but even leaving aside the fact that I don't particularly care for leases personally, it just seemed like, why wouldn't I get a lightly used one, which this is by my definition, lightly used. Why wouldn't I do that and save myself, 40% of the cost of the car? And I know it's a little bit different with leases because you presumably you would just turn it in and get a new car, blah, blah, blah. But I view it as roughly analogous. And yeah, I mean, if you're willing to get something used, a used EV in America anyway, right now, is astonishingly affordable. It really, really is.